This is the Fiscal Court meeting, work session for August the 12th, 2022. We welcome everybody. We have a packed house in here, and so we'll get started and we'll call this meeting to order. And first on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance by Micaiah and Amy from the VFW. So let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Micaiah and Amy.
I'm Nakia Brayman, I'm 15 years old. I'm Amy Shankel and I'm 9 years old. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One of the
Thank
best.
you.
They was
Thank you.
fast.
Thank you. They're moving. Catch up with these young folks, right? All right. Thank you, Micaiah and Amy. Let's now go to promotional pinning ceremony. Chief, call you up. We have Jason Brooks to battalion chief, Sean Mertz to captain, Garrett Turner to engineer, and let's call them up one at a time. And I would ask that those that are being pinned, when you get a chance, to introduce your family as well. Okay, Chief?
Thank you, Judge.
Let's do that.
Good morning, Court. We actually have one extra, Michael Shaw. He was promoted earlier in the year.
Okay.
It wasn't on the agenda, but we wanted to give him that chance. He was a standalone promotion, so we wanted to make sure that we honored him and give him the chance with the pinning ceremony. So
Okay, great.
We'll start with Michael.
Okay.
You can come up. Michael's been with the department for about 15 years. I have no doubt that he'll do great in the engineer position, very mechanically minded, and we're proud of him for making this promotion. Michael, if you want to just pin one side, Chief over to pin the other.
Don't cough.
Sticking to it. This is my wife, Jessie.
Congratulations.
The next pinning we'll do is Engineer Garrett Turner. He's younger within the department, but he's proven himself to get promoted rather quickly, and he's also another person who's very mechanically inclined, which is a great asset to have as an engineer. So I have no doubt that he'll do great as an engineer as well.
It don't matter to me.
You're welcome to stand up and take a picture if you'd like.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm waiting for the smile.
Introduce your
This
family.
is my wife, Kelsey, my mom, Carla, and her boyfriend, Mike.
Y'all want to come up and do a picture together?
Yeah, y'all want to stand up?
Sure.
Go in there and do a picture.
Yeah, I love it. One of my many strengths.
All right, guys, if you like to give face here, there we go. 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to take up 1, 2, and 3 one last time now, y'all. 1, 2, and 3. All right.
All right, thank
The next promotion we'll recognize is Captain Sean Mertz. Sean's been with the department for about 12 years now. He's proven himself to be towards the top of the promotional list every year for several years, and this year was his year to get that promotion. He's going to be stepping into the supervisor's role, which is a little bit of a change, but he's acted in that role several times for the department, so I feel he'll be very comfortable in it.
And he's going to have his brother pin him.
His brother's going to pin him.
All right, now you two behave.
I can still take him.
Daddy, don't scream.
Don't scream.
Don't scream. like the older brother can still thank you.
There's no way I'd let my brothers pin me.
Or your sisters.
Very brave.
Oh, but how they would like to
Oh,
hear.
they would, they'd love it.
This is my wife Kristen, it's my daughter Kaylee, and my daughter Kenzie. So,
All right, guys.
And your brother.
Yeah,
well, yeah, they know him.
All right, guys, we're gonna take several, okay? 1, 2, and 3. One more. 1, 2, and 3. One last time now, y'all. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you very much.
And those girls are really cute.
Don't worry about it.
And the last thing will be Jason Brooks, who's been promoted to battalion chief. He's another one who's been towards the top of the promotion list for battalion chief for several years. And he is well respected within the department. He'll be stepping into the management role. He'll be overseeing an entire crew now, so he's already filled into that role rather quickly. It's a quick adjustment, and he's doing great so far, so I'm sure he'll continue on and be a great battalion chief for the department.
This is my wife, April.
1, 2, 3. One couple more. 1, 2, and 3. One last time now. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, congratulations to the guys. Thank you all very much, and to the families, thank you as well. Thank you for being here, and God bless everybody. Be safe. Thank you. If you all would want to take another picture, out front, there's another little spot out there behind the front desk, if you want to take another picture back there. But anyway, God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Amber? Kate, are you on? Kate McCain?
Yes, I am.
All right, I wanted everybody to see our new deputy treasurer officially, but unofficially our treasurer in the making. Kate has been here for a couple weeks, and actually today, well, Monday will make 2 weeks, I guess, and so we're excited about having her, and she's still here after all of our work. So Kate, welcome. You're welcome to say a few words if you'd like, but I want to introduce you to the Fiscal Court, and we have a lot of people watching today too. So welcome, Kate.
Thank you, and I look forward to working with you all.
I told her to limit her speech.
I was going to say, that was literally a few words.
Okay, Magistrate, do you have any questions, anything you want to say to her? All right.
Just welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, she's been great. The past couple of days, we've been able to go to all the elected officials as well as the department heads and just introduce her and sit down and talk about the process, and she's learning a lot. If she's in the other room, busy with other stuff, but when you sit down and talk with her, you can see all of this knowledge just coming out of her head. It's overwhelming. She's been great. Thank you, Kate. God bless. Thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda is a week from tomorrow. We sent a lot of flood relief donations and items to Eastern Kentucky. Chief, I'd like for you to give us an update. I believe Andrew's got some pictures, and then I also have Tommy Russell to also talk about what we're doing as part of the community as well. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, the fire department, for obviously what you did.
Thank you, Judge. Well, the main thing we want to do is thank the community. They really showed out on this one. We actually had so many donations that we had to coordinate with the National Guard Luckily, they reached out to us, told us that anything we had overstock that we couldn't handle, that they would take care of sending down. We had a contact that I made down in Floyd County that we were able to establish where the most need was for our items. So we called them last Friday morning to determine what area needed the items we had the most. So all items ended up going to Pike County. I believe, Andrew, some of the pictures there of the donations, and there's a few pictures of that's actually at the facility in Pike County where they were dropping off the supplies. We sent 2 guys, and that's a 16-foot by 8-foot box trailer. It was loaded, as you saw in the picture, all the way to the top, and then we also had a couple pallets of water show up after that we had to get with the Boone Center. They were willing to take it down for us. So just want to thank the community for all their support and help for the Eastern Kentucky flood victims.
Absolutely. Thank you, Franklin County. Just remarkable and wonderful. We have such a great community and that wants to help people. And this is another example of it. Do you know how it's dispersed? Do you know what's that process once you drop it off and how that works?
So where we dropped it off was like a distribution center. There, it's the Appalachian Wireless Arena, I believe it is, like a convention center down there, because there's several roads that are impassable, and then they have local coordination with the cities that are around them, and they get it dispersed to the people in need from there.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Chief. Tommy, we also have you here to talk about the other part of it is other people wanting to help. Chief, God bless. Thank you, guys. Thank you all so much. And welcome, Tommy.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, Andrew. I don't know where Andrew is.
He's in a little room.
He'll get
Watching us.
Andrew will get it on.
Okay. So, just talking about the East Kentucky disaster, early on, and everybody wants to contribute, but the judge and I were in a meeting the other day. That flyer is a flyer that came out early on, and it talks about people that are self-deploying or donations that maybe don't fit the need at the time. And that flyer was posted early on to make sure that whatever was being donated was needed. There are a lot of things that probably were given that weren't needed. I've seen statistics that say 60% of donations get put in the trash after everything's said and done. So, but the judge and I were in a meeting the other day, and it came down to cash, and cash is king still. Donations to the Red Cross are the easiest thing, or I'm looking at this, it says Team KY Flood Relief. Pardon me, I don't have my glasses on.
You need my glasses, Tommy.
.ky.gov is a website to donate to the flood relief victims of East Kentucky. And all of those donations cash donations will go to the entities there, and they will use them as they see fit to buy the necessary articles. We did send 8 people downrange last weekend.
Yes, that's
The weekends are mixed up. And they did pretty much damage assessments on bridges and private drives. And I was just kind of looking at this last sit rep, and it seemed like it said there were, out of 1,000 bridges down there, there were looked like 75 or so that were damaged, that were going to have to be repaired or replaced, that were private drives for people that couldn't get across or couldn't get either way, one side or the other. And I think that's what our guys went down and did. They were assessing to make sure nobody was trapped on the wrong side so they could get supplies to them. And they went Saturday and Sunday.
So tell us a little bit about what we sent down there, both the city and the county sent.
So you had 4 firefighters go?
Yeah, we had a team go down on Saturday and a team go down on Sunday, along with a Gator ATV, so that they could go off-road and assess the needs of what they requested.
Right. And I noticed it rained all day Saturday down there, so I'm sure their mission changed sometime along the way. I just feel like it did, and I haven't had a chance to talk to them, but I'm sure they were assigned various tasks as needed. So 2 city fire 2 city PD and then 4 county fire went down this past weekend with Gators, all Gators trailers. We sent cots down, they stayed in the Hazard Armory, I guess, is where they ended up staying. So, you know.
Tommy mentioned that, and I know the governor's talked about that. Those people that want to go down there, there's not a place to stay.
That is correct, sir. Maybe a week after this disaster happened, the governor said, hey, there's no more room at the inn. You know, if you're going, you need to be self-contained. So that's why we held on for a long time to make sure that you get a KYM number, which is Kentucky Emergency Management Mission assigned. When you get that, you know, you've got a place to stay, you've got fuel, you've got food, you've got water, you've got all the things necessary to send a team downrange, or they'll tell you this is what you need to take with you. So the people that self-deploy, eventually when you get so many volunteers, it becomes an issue. So you've got to dedicate staff to that issue on what to do with them, how to house them, how to feed them. You know, if you're trying to feed the population down there, I don't need 5,000 more volunteers that I have to feed also. So it becomes an issue. It happens in every disaster. Every disaster. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you know, it is an issue that we have a lot of class hours on and a lot of conversation time about. So, but right now, like I say, cash is king down there. That I saw what the governor said yesterday. We're through with the emergency response phase, even though we still got BSAR teams. I think they're all maybe an hour away from the mountains. I mean, just because there's no place else to stay. And they're going into stabilization phase, which is what our guys did, was go in to assess bridges and roads. And they're not structural engineers, but to be able to say, yes, you can pass, or no, it won't pass, or anything like that. So that's what we did this weekend. And that's the phase that we're moving into now. So where the private bridges are priority right now on the list for individuals to get back on into their properties. So that's kind of where we sit now. Everybody needs to understand that this will not be a short-lived, this is not going to be a short-lived disaster. This flooding disaster, you know, when you send volunteers down there, they go for a week and then they got to come back home. Well, we're going to need volunteers for, you know, 8 weeks, you know, to go down and do things. So the website that I just gave you, and then the flood, I'll have to dig that up, Judge. I can't remember it off the top
Would
of my
you
head.
work with Andrew to
I will.
get that posted
Yeah.
on our website?
And get that out, and it's got all the resources that go down through there. I'm actually going to send the elected officials, since you all are the pillars of the community, a sit rep that we get from KYM every day, and I've got the latest one, and I'll send it to you all so you can see that, and then it'll have donations needed on there, and you can reach out to your constituents, or if they ask you, you'll know exactly what to do with that and what to send. And when we get through here today, I'll send that to you all so you can read it and see exactly what I'm talking about.
Tommy, as part of this, I say to you that we go through you, the county government, the city government goes through you, requests. So if there are other requests, personnel or equipment or whatever that may be needed, just let us know and we'll be happy to oblige. And thank you once again, Chief, in any way that we can to help with what we've got with our resources here in Franklin County.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Like I say, if KYM will ask for it and everything goes through the proper channels, then we'll do our best. Just bearing in mind that we have to take care of our own here first, and whatever we have we can send, we'll send.
Do you know anything on the plant board crew that, if they're, I think they're coming home today?
They were switching out water crews today, I guess, maybe, Lambert. I was talking to them yesterday. I think there were like 5 wastewater treatment facilities that were still down, and maybe 3 water systems. And they were down maybe at Heinemann. I don't remember exactly where they are, but they were trading out today and going, trying to get that. There were only like maybe that one water treatment facility was offline, and they were trying to get the pipe run back to it to get it back online. It'll be in that sit rep that I sent to you all today, so you can see that. But I did talk to them yesterday, and they were trading out. I couldn't.
Yeah, I know they're coming back home today. The crew that went last week.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Chiefs, thank you. Tommy, thank you. and community, most importantly, thank you for all that you've done. All right.
Absolutely.
We'll be in touch. You be in
Okay.
touch. Whatever's needed.
You want me to do that other one now? You want me to wait?
Yeah, okay, you might as well since you're up there, and that, what item is that, Tamara? Hang on a second, Tommy. Item 11, authorization to approve a resolution for a commitment of the Franklin County Fiscal Court to share in the cost of removal of an abandoned houseboat hull located on the Kentucky River with the city of Franklin.
So, if y'all remember, back in 2017, I think we executed a contract with Mahan or Aquarius or somebody to do a major cleanup on the river. As far as I know, it's the first time it had ever been done. And I believe we removed 60 tons of debris out of the river between abandoned boats and junk and boat docks and whatnot. I know that I'm not the only one that's had a phone call about this, the hull of this boat sitting across from Big Eddie right now. So, the good and the bad is that it's obvious, you can see what it is. The tour boat that Buffalo Trace runs goes right by there up to the I-64 bridges. The good thing is the Kentucky River Authority enters into a contract every year with one of those companies to dredge around their locks, take care of the sailing line, remove debris out of the middle of the channel, and that's who we partnered with last time. I have been in touch with Justin Shanks from Mahan. That boat was delayed this year to renew the permitting, so it's due up here sometime this month. Now, we had a 22-foot river, which is a 15-foot rise for us in August, and I don't remember the last time we had that big a rise. I did go by, the boat's still there, nothing has changed on it. If I can get the river down to Pool while they're here, I was gonna see if we could remove that. I estimate the cost at $5,000 or $6,000 maybe, and I was gonna ask you all to split it with the city. That's what we did the last time that we did river cleanup. And I have been from one end of the county line on the river to the other end, and we've done really well. There's only one other little bitty, maybe 10-foot aluminum boat that's sunk downriver someplace. And I don't know that anybody would ever see it if they weren't looking for it. But we had a possible drowning one weekend and I was looking for that. So, but this is obviously an eyesore. And I can't remember what year it was. Back when we started all this in 2017, I had gone before a subcommittee for the House or the Senate local legislature because there's no jurisdiction for abandoned boats or anything on the banks, on the river, anything like that. And I hate to say this out loud, but if you're going to get rid of something, you do just like this person did, leave it up there and tie it off and it's done, you know.
Okay, don't say that out loud.
But, you know, moving forward, I think that that's one of those things that, you know, I know Rick and Laura Ross looked into that about our own ordinance and what we could do. The only recourse I have on anything like that is if it's got some kind of release, hazardous material release or something like that, or spill, and I can get the EPA in and we can mitigate that way. This is far beyond that. You can see the top's gone off the boat due to high water now, and the hull is just there. And if we don't remove it, it's going to be there forever. I mean, we'll not get enough sand around it to cover it up. It's too far out of the water. But I thought this was a good opportunity for a little bit of money and to split to remove this thing and be done with it. Like I say, I think we each spent $20,000 last time for a $40,000 total. We came in well under that, but we cleaned it up once, we might as well keep it clean. It's kind of what I think. I mean, it just, like I say, I know I'm not the only one that's had a phone call about this boat. So I'll just ask you to split the cost with the city. I got a contract with Mahan. They're looking at it right now, and whether the bill comes to the city or the county and we split it, either way, it doesn't matter to me. But they're going to look at it when they come upriver to make sure I haven't misjudged the amount of time that it's going to take, and the price won't be $20,000, something like that, I wouldn't do that. But, I think for $5,000 or $6,000, we can get rid of this thing. And this one eyesore that we've all had multiple phone calls about. I know Sherry has.
Any questions for Tommy on that? Go ahead, Squire.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate this, the timing on this. The question I have is because the river is up, none of us know when the dredge boat's gonna go through. So if the dredge boat goes through and it possibly will still be above where we can pull this out, what happens at that point? Do we wait another year?
If we miss this opportunity, we
Yeah.
will. The river's falling now.
It is. I mean, it's out of my yard now.
Yeah, the river's going down now. If I can get it down to 8 feet or something like that, which is about a foot above normal pool, we can pull that out of there. They haven't started up the mouth of the Kentucky.
Okay. I didn't know what the timing was. I didn't know if you knew where they were at this point.
I'm guessing sometime the last we're into the last half, aren't we? The last week of this month, maybe, that they'll be in this pool. I suggested that they satisfy the Kentucky River Authority contract first, and then when they're on their way back down, they go all the way to Lock 5. And when they're on the way back down, we'll stop and do that if everybody agrees to it. That way, there won't be any question about the time involved or any of the money spent on that. And we can get it out. If I can get it out at Hambones at Old Lawrenceburg ramp,
Yeah.
I'll do that if we can pull it up the hill, but that's a pretty steep ramp, so.
It is, that's the best place.
Yeah, last time we went all the way back down river to the bar, to the rock bar, Buffalo Trace, and offloaded, but we'll make it work, whatever we need to do.
Is it metal hull or?
That's fiberglass hull. I hope it doesn't tear apart.
Where is
Yeah.
Lot 5?
Thank you.
Lock 5 is Lawrenceburg, up in Anderson County. Tyrone, that's exactly right.
Anyone else?
So there's no hull numbers or anything on it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, there are.
So.
I did an open record.
Do I know who
request.
owns
got
it? Yes, sir.
Yes, I have it as well. I've been pursuing it on my side for
Yeah, we can
months.
pull it out and take the guy to court if you want to, and whatever you all want to do. But I've got to pay our, the haul company right off the bat. And then we can pursue it after that. I've got the documentation, so. There were 2 boats there, and one of them went left and went someplace else,
Yeah.
fortunately.
Now I remember.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Tommy.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you for your report. Okay, the next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from our regular meeting of July 22nd, 2022. Any questions on that? All right, the next item on the agenda is the authorization to receive report of the audit of our sheriff's settlement, 2020 taxes for period May 16, 2020 to April 15, 2021. Is the sheriff on?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, Sheriff.
Yeah, this is our 2020 tax settlement, and it was with no findings. Thankful for that. Like I always say, we want to stay in budget and have clean audits and pay our bills on time. So this is our latest tax audit, and I appreciate the staff and the court for all of the hard work and dedication, and thankfully it came out with no findings.
All right, any questions on the sheriff's audit? A clean audit? Thank you, Sheriff, for having a clean audit. The next item is authorization to receive the Farmville Sanitation District fiscal year 2022-2023 budget, and Ray Smith's here. Ray, welcome.
How are you?
Thank you for being here. And thank you for your work on the board.
Ready to do it. We present our budget every month or every year to Fiscal Court. And I'm here to see if you have any questions about it this time.
Okay, you received the budget. Ray, it looks like your gross income, there's not a lot of wiggle room in there, is there, my friend?
No, there's not. Next year will be a little bit better. We had a rough year maintenance-wise. We spent a little over $200,000 more than we took in due to maintenance issues over the past year. We engaged with RCAP, which is Rural Community Assistance Partnership, to do a rate survey, and the guy that did the survey recommended a rate that covers our costs plus 12%, which allows us to get KIA loans. Our debt ratio was at the point where we could not get a loan before this rate increase. So
And Ray, we're gonna have a public hearing, I think, in the next Tuesday?
I can't remember the exact date.
Not next Tuesday, but the week, Tuesday after 2 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah. And we'll get that advertised and out and talk with the community about that rate increase and the other things, the CDBG, the LMI report too.
Right, good.
And update on where we are.
Right. There's been a lot going on, there's a lot left to do
Yeah.
on these plants there.
Squire Sebastian, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Judge. Mr. Treasurer, thank you for being here. I did want to ask, there was a footnote at the bottom of this that talked about the income is based on 4 months at the previous rate and 8 months at the new rate. So,
Yes.
can you talk about the timing of the new rate?
It
I
went into
missed the
effect
last meeting, I just was in a place I couldn't watch.
It went into effect August 1st. The first bills will come out at the end of this month. It gives Farmdale Water, who does our billing, a month to collect dues, another month to go through their reconciliation project, and we won't see the first money of that until November. So this fiscal year, we'll have 4 months income at the old rate before we start getting into the new rate.
And you said that there was an organization that talked to you about how to
Yes.
arrive at that ratio. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because
Yeah, the fellow that did this, he spent 12 years at the Public Service Commission doing rate structures, and we gave him all of our financials, and he recommended it, to cover our costs, plus the 12% overhead, which allows us to get these loans so that they know we can pay the loan back, because you can't use a sewer plant as collateral, because nobody wants to own it. So they use,
while Farmville Sanitation has done now.
they use the rate structure as collateral to ensure that they can get their money back.
Okay.
And if something big happens to one of these plants, we've got to have a loan to do it, because we can't afford to fix these things on our operating fees.
And the plan is to take, I guess, 2 stations offline, right? Quail Run and
We're in the process of taking Quail Run off right
you
now.
might want to just,
We've had lots of trouble with it. It gets diapers and baby wipes and everything else in it. The pumps burn up every month or 2. It has to be pulled out and cleaned, and we have to pump it.
and none of the
Pump
pumps
station.
are interchangeable between stations.
No, not really. Some of them can be used in other plants.
I had always heard the other, so.
No, we'd like to get to the point where they are, but they were all put in at different times. They've got different volume levels, different head pressure, depending on how high they have to pump stuff. And they're really not interchangeable. Some of the blowers are, but not many.
Okay.
They're all different sizes and put in at different points in time, different.
Some of them aren't made anymore, right?
Yeah, we've had trouble with that. We've had some pumps that we've had to have made special for these. And we're still waiting on a control panel now. We've been waiting over 3 months to get a control panel in for Coolbrook. It's hard to get stuff right now. If you have a flood in St. Louis or New Orleans, all this stuff, the warehouse is empty out and it goes to these flood areas.
Sure.
And everybody else just can't get anything until they build the inventories back up.
As you hear Ray talk about these issues, it kind of gives you a 30,000-foot view of the big issue. The big issue is how much do you spend on fixing something that is totally broken, but it's going to be replaced in the long run. The whole goal here is to replace all of this inadequate machinery, the process, the filtration system, and but you got to keep operating it until we can get it replaced. So we're spending a lot of money to put Band-Aids on this, but you have to. We all know the court has been very generous about trying to help the people in that area, but it is a huge situation for them to tackle, because how much do you spend on a Band-Aid when you really need stitches and major surgery? basically, use that metaphor or analogy.
And even if we get these replaced, we're still gonna have significant maintenance costs due to all these old clay pipes that were in some of these old areas.
Yeah, that's another piece of it
Because
too.
the pipes are breaking down, they're getting roots in them.
Uh-huh.
So, have the residents seen the hike yet? Or
We sent letters to every one of them.
But when did it go
What's
into
the
effect?
percentage, a good percentage of the?
It went up about 50%. So we're in that neighborhood. Which we don't like, we know people don't like it, but we got to the point we had to do it.
Yeah.
Or go out of business.
It went into effect August 1st.
Yes.
Okay, so they've seen it on their,
They won't see it
It's on
until the
their
next
bill,
bill.
okay.
It'll show up on their next
Right.
bill.
Squire Muller?
Thank you, Judge. Thank you for all you do. Question, on your emergency reserve, is that kind of a standard fee, or do you use a percentage rate as far as how much you want?
The RCAP representative recommended 12%.
Okay.
And this doesn't show 12% because we've got 4 months at the old rates. It
But
should
that's
reflect
all.
12% next fiscal year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, we've got Ray here. I think a pat on the back, a real thank you goes to Ray for his services. He's the treasurer.
Right.
And also Charlie Burnett, who's the chair, and our newest member, Hank Swaggart. They work so hard. They get so many calls. Quite honestly, this is probably one of the most difficult boards we have in the county to be on. And there's so much that has to be done, and there's so many issues that have to be addressed on a daily basis, sometimes on an hourly basis if it rains hard.
Ray, do y'all send out letters telling people what not to flush?
We do.
If you
Well,
didn't
we
eat
got
it, don't
letters so
flush
much,
it.
we put it on our website, we contact people, we have it on the Facebook pages.
They
I know
still
in
do
our
it
neighborhood, we've
anyway.
done it multiple
And that probably
times.
tears up your pumps, doesn't it?
It does. We've had them put in a brand new pump, come back next day and it's stocked up with wipes and wipers and.
Yeah, it tears up the grinders first and then
Yeah.
the pumps can't move. And, you know, I've posted pictures of hours here.
Right.
As soon as, saying, please, please don't flush these things, and that still happens.
Yeah.
We probably spend 5,000 a month just pulling stuff out of these pipes and.
And it's not pretty to go see to even take a photo
No,
of
I
and
know,
stand
I've
over and
seen-
deal.
It doesn't dissolve, we have to
It
pay
does
somebody
not.
to pull it out sooner or later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it collects with kitchen grease and forms these huge
Yep.
balls of
Squire Booth?
garbage.
Well, I wanted to say that when you see a product in a store that says it's flushable, it is not. And I am glad that Hank Swaggart has joined the sewer board because he was one of the people that I had several conversations with in the 5th District about the Cool Brook sewer. So he should understand what the problem is. So, I mean, it's easy to understand, but still, he has personal stake in it. So, I
Okay?
want to say that, yes.
Anything else for Ray? Thank you, Squire Booth. Anything else? All right, thank you, Ray. Appreciate
Thanks, Ray.
your board, great work, you as well. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the second reading approval of an ordinance amending the operation of County Fiscal Court, Chapter 30, Administrative Code, Personnel Administration. Vacancies, compensation plan, classifications of employees, and add a section for county-issued property to employees as part of the Code of Ordinances. Rick Tambra?
So these are the things that were discussed in our admin code work session and the court asked for.
Everybody aware of that? Rick, you have any comments on that? Is Rick on?
Yes, sir. We've reviewed it a couple times. There's a little impact relative to the travel authority, but it's all with the discretion of the department heads on where you go. And I think John is very much aware of the limits that he's going to have to deal with while they're doing this.
Different item, Rick.
Pardon?
We're not on that section yet.
Oh,
We're
I had
on
to-
the administrative code, changes, the 3 changes for the county
Oh,
inmate.
no, that was fine. I'm sorry. And get a printed document. My apologies.
It's okay.
But the issue's still the same on the other one too, for what that's worth.
We'll get there in a minute.
All right. Questions? All right, let's move to the next item. The next item is second reading approval and ordinance amending the table of special ordinances, section 1, zoning map changes of the Franklin County Code of Ordinances for an acre, 49, almost a 50-acre property identified as on a DVA map from rural residential RR to ag district in Peaks Mill. Robert, and you're going to be on for a few. Welcome, Robert. Hope you got some sleep after last night's long meeting as well.
Not as much as I'd like. But I appreciate it. Good morning, Court. So this is the second reading of the ordinance for zone map amendment request of 49.96 acres of property located at 3730 Peaks Mill Road. Planning Commission held a public hearing and took testimony on June the 9th, 2022, and that same evening adopted the staff recommended findings of facts identified as A, B, and C on the ordinance. Staff had recommended approval, and it's respectfully submitted for the court's decision.
Questions on this item? Who? Squire Mullin.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Robert, for being on here today. I believe, and I watched this on the video that was sent. He's requesting this for 3 homes. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure the total number of homes it'll be, but it'll be more than 1 home, which is what precipitated the need for a change in the zoning.
So is there anything that protects us as far as, because this is a touchy subject in the last couple of years, and I think I'm at least, for agriculture and things, but is there anything that protects that what the applicant is asking for actually kind of goes through, or is it just in the planning commission's hands once it leaves if we approve it?
Well, are you referring to the number of homes that are constructed?
Or I think in the meeting he was talking about doing a fruit stand and different things like that. As far as what actually happens. That he doesn't turn around and sell it tomorrow or something like that. I'm just trying to. Is there any guidance?
Well, there's nothing that the government can do if they choose to transfer the property to another owner. All other activity on the property would be regulated administratively by myself and my staff.
Okay, so before the applicant does anything with the property, has to come back in front of you or the planning commission?
Me.
Does it make it to the planning commission or is it just solely your office?
Solely my office.
Okay, thank
Unless
you.
he tries to rezone it again.
Okay.
Or unless a conditional use permit's requested, then that would go to the Board of Zoning Adjustments. So a lot of variables.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Squire Tracy?
Robert, would it be accurate to say that this probably is not going to be the first one that comes to us from this particular area where this family has decided to cut up their farm and sell in 50-acre tracts? So this is probably not going to be the first one that comes to us.
No, sir. This is could be viewed as a common occurrence. Farm owners have 2 options as it relates to their farming activities and additional residences. The Franklin County ordinance currently reads that more than 1 dwelling can be constructed on any farm in an agricultural district for a family member or a tenant who is working the farm. So for an ag zoning, they could, build, if it's a horse farm, they could have 4 different, homes for tenant farmers, things of that nature. The other option provided for property owners is that they could subdivide a portion of the property for a separate dwelling if there's a desire for a deed for that, for legal reasons, tax reasons, whatever. So, and if it comes through as a minor plat, that's an administrative function. So, there's 2 ways to go about it in the ag zone.
What is the size, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What is the size of what is considered a minor plat, acreage wise?
the subdivision from the parent tract of 5 parcels or less within a 5-year period. So the 5 parcels includes the parent tract, so technically you get 4 parcels off the original tract.
Okay, any other questions? Any other questions, anything else? Okay, Robert, thank you. Let's go to the next item, and this is once again, another complicated way to issue, not way, but issue. Mr. Attorney, should questions move through this issue, should we keep our questions only pertaining to the record? How do you guide us on how we handle this particular item? That's item 7 or item 8, or item 8.
I'd ask the court to consider delaying this till the next meeting or meeting in between. This morning we received a lawsuit from the Kentucky Resources Council making allegations of some degree relative to this property, and I have not had to review it and would like that opportunity to review that further before a decision or otherwise is made on the Duncan Road property. I got that this morning at about the time I was going to the printer to print it up.
So even if this is the first reading, it wouldn't, you don't want to do the first reading?
I would ask the court to consider playing that for one more time if it's at all possible.
Okay.
Only because if nothing else, just the short nature of people pleading things the day before.
Well, we need to know what the timeline is on this then.
Is there, yes, that's exactly right.
Robert.
Robert, how does the timeline fit with this?
So per the statute, the fiscal court has 90 days after June the 9th, which was the date the planning commission recommended to the court. So roughly the second week of September. I don't have the exact date on me.
June 9th.
So we need to know that, Robert, if you would figure that up for us, because I think that is paramount in how we move forward.
I think it's September
Councilor
7th.
Sparks, you need to kind of help us with that too as well.
September 7th.
Well, that's the deadline. That's what you're facing. It's X number of days date that they certified and completed their position.
So the next meeting of the court is September what? September 1st. So that puts us in a bind. How many days after September 1st do we have to can we meet like the next day? This is just arbitrary. Can we meet the next day after the first reading if we have to change all of this?
I have to advertise.
So I don't see how we can do that.
But we could have a special meeting just for this.
I have to advertise at least, no.
Well, we gotta advertise for that
First I'm
too.
seeing this.
We still
I have not
to-
had to accept review this matter, and if you gotta have a special meeting, then have a special meeting. But I want to make sure that it's done properly, so I'd like to review it.
Well, and Rick, if I could ask, there's nothing to say we can't have a special meeting before September 1 to move it up. If, let's say, in the next couple of days, you look over this and think it's okay for us to proceed, that would be okay also, correct?
That's my question. What happens if you say, I don't think we should proceed, and that automatically goes to the affirmative of what the Planning and Zoning Commission did without us being able to vote on it if the timelines go? I don't think that's fair. So we got to keep that in mind too, Counselor.
Then I would ask you all to keep that in mind. Right now, I'm saying that I just received a matter that I think requires an appropriate attention, and it's going to affect your decision one way or the other. And if you got to do that, I'd recommend that you do that appropriately. But you all be aware of it because you're the ones that set the meeting. I'd like to review this further.
So Rick, can I ask, or we ask, like, how long will it take for you to review this? And maybe get back to us via email and we can do a special.
Meeting before.
If you think it's okay to proceed, say middle of next week, then we could schedule a meeting before September 1. Is that?
I have no other comment on this matter until the so I'm not gonna, that's the only comment. I'd ask you to change it if you want to.
Yep.
If you don't proceed, but I'd like to review it. I don't have a time frame.
All right. Let's see.
Thank you.
Well, hang on.
Mr. Judge, as more than a casual observer here, I would like to just ask Mr. Sparks if the court could proceed to give first reading to an ordinance, and then you do all the review you want to do, and if they don't give second reading to it at a later date based on your advice, then that seems to settle the matter. But is there anything to prohibit them from giving first reading to the ordinance? I just looked on CourtNet and didn't find any lawsuit against the Franklin Fiscal Court in the last 7 days. So maybe it's filed, maybe it's not, but is what you have filed, or is it?
So I've made as much opinion as I'm about to make on this, and that really, I'm serious about that. I've received a document that I believe impacts the court's activity. I've asked the court to pass it. That is my last statement on this matter.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel.
So what I can do, just to try to help speed this along, if there's gonna be a short window between the first reading and the second reading, if I know when that first reading is gonna take place, I'll go in and advertise for the second reading, just to cover us and help with that time frame. I can do that.
Counselor Sparks, or Tim, let's ask you first and then Counselor Sparks. Could we have a meeting on Monday afternoon at 5 o'clock? Is that enough time? Is that not enough time to advertise? Enough time to advertise?
I don't need to advertise, the ordinance, just, special meetings, 24 hours.
But we don't know how long it's gonna take our county attorney to
Well,
review it.
that was my
Okay.
second
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can take as long as you want.
September 1.
As long as it has to,
You
I
probably
guess.
need to do it before September 1 for our meetings, if we're gonna have a.
Counselor Sparks, I hate to ask you, can you have it read by, no? Okay, so it looks like we've got a conference next week, we've got all kinds of, so, it looks like, and I know that the 18th in the evening is not a good time, next week, and in the morning it's not good for, some, and so, how about Monday week, which would be like the 22nd? The 22nd, Monday week, at 5 o'clock. Trying to get it in the afternoon for those that are working, 5 o'clock on the 22nd.
Would this be the only thing on the agenda?
Yes, this will be a special.
So obviously with Zoom, I wouldn't see there being a problem.
Sure, you can do, yeah.
Anytime that you feel like it needs to be called, just, I mean, as long as it's inside, just never shoot a message.
Counselor Sparks, can we give you a week to,
Is that in your just?
That's what I understood you just did.
well, I mean, is that time, I'm asking you, is that time enough for you?
I'll say this again. I got this 20 minutes ago.
I know.
Okay, so cut me some slack, please, because I'm trying to cut you some slack. You can schedule it when you want to. It looks like I'll be working all weekend, or maybe not at all. But please be aware of the total ramification thing that you're considering doing. I'm now at 21 minutes away.
Okay.
Keep that in mind.
So, all right, let's go to the August 22nd, Monday, August 22nd at 5 o'clock. At this point in time, this will be a special call meeting with item 7 and item 8 on the agenda, item 7 and item 8 on the agenda.
5 o'clock.
At 5 o'clock. A week from this coming Monday, at 5 o'clock. Everybody got that?
Yep.
And Counselor Sparks, you can live with it, I hope. So, right, remember, we can do it.
I'm working on it even as we speak. Thank you, sir.
Are we okay?
And so if we do it on August 22nd, you all want to have the first reading on the September 1st.
We will have the first reading on September the 1st. No, wouldn't we have the first, first reading would be on the 22nd?
Yeah, second reading.
Second reading on the
Yeah,
1st,
so
yes.
I'll go ahead and
Yes. Okay. All right, everybody understand that? First reading on August the 22nd, and the second reading, which would be the date we were going to do it anyway, would be September the 1st. Okay.
Does that work with Robert?
Thank you all. I appreciate your all's consideration. Thank you.
Robert, you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, thanks, everybody. All right, now we move forward to the next item. Robert, you're on with that. And Mr. Hart, Mr. Hart, welcome. We don't see you in person very much. Maybe it's the first time we have seen you in person.
I think so.
Okay, this item is authorization to approve a resolution requesting the Franklin County Planning Commission conduct a hearing to amend the Franklin County Code of Ordinances to add a 1,000-foot separation between residential recovery facilities and residential dwellings. Robert, we have Mr. Harp in here as well. You want to talk about this? I know we've had a comment or two about that, and so I'd like to hear what your thoughts are, and then what the court, have a discussion with the court.
Yes, sir. So the Fiscal Court adopted an ordinance establishing residential recovery facilities on February 11th, 2022, ordinance 2-2022. Since that time, the court has requested that I establish a revision or present a revision to the court for consideration that would separate such future residential recovery facility separation from any adjacent dwelling at a given distance. So on this resolution, I have begun the conversation with a 1,000-foot linear distance in all directions for the court's consideration. Per KRS 100.211 sub 3, a text amendment can originate from this body, the Fiscal Court, and you can make a recommendation to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission would hold an evidentiary hearing and then make a recommendation back to the Fiscal Court for consideration. The court's consideration would come via an ordinance to amend the existing Code of Ordinances, which would require 2 readings. And I have provided the resolution to begin the conversation for a 1,000-foot separation. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm good with 1,000 feet.
Okay, we got several questions. Smart Blackburn, I'll let you go first.
Sure. Robert, thanks for working on this again. What other type of facilities or buildings or anything like that have prescribed setbacks in the ordinance? I know there's setbacks from city streets or county streets, things like that. In the discussion last night on another topic at the Planning Commission, there was a number put out for a particular type of building. And I was just wondering if we have other requirements for other types of buildings.
Liquor stores.
For setbacks.
Robert, I saw, you and I looked at a document last night. Do you have that document available on setbacks and under other issues?
Yes, sir. Let me pull that up. So I I've reviewed much of the codified ordinances for Franklin County and have the following.
We don't see it, Robert.
Would you like me to share my screen?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Tippett, would you allow screen share, please?
Yes, sir. Give me just 1 second. All right, you should be good to go.
Thank you. So
Can you enlarge it, Andrew?
Robert's in control, so he would have to do it.
I can
What did
read.
you say?
Can you zoom in, Robert, and your document, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go.
Okay, so the first one that I pulled relates to landfills that occurs in the E-ZL zoning classification. And it refers to the actual waste pile itself. Herein referred to as the waste boundary. It says it shall be no less than 250 feet from the property line. And then it further states that the boundary shall not be within 750 feet of any dwelling or mobile home. All right, so 250 feet within the subject property and an additional 500 feet thereafter. All right, that's how it comes up with the 750.
When you say waste, are you talking about landfill?
Yes, sir, solid waste.
Okay.
So the mound of tracks, the toe of the slope, can be no closer than 250 feet to the property line or 750 feet from any dwelling, which includes that 250 feet. So an additional 500 feet outside of the property line. Okay? Next one relates to the industrial commercial zoning classification. It says if it's adjacent to any residential district or any residence, it shall be at least 80 feet away with a landscape screen. Okay? So 80 feet for industrial commercial. Industrial general, it shall be 100 feet from any residence, any R district or any residence. So in the absence of a structure on a residentially zoned piece of property, the 100 feet still applies. There are other examples within the codified ordinances for Franklin County that have separation standards that relate to sexually oriented businesses, alcohol sales in proximity to other uses, things of that nature. But as it relates to the zoning ordinance, these are the ones that I came across that I thought would help illustrate past actions of the court.
Robert, would you, I believe the court saw it, but would you share the concern that our building inspector talked with you about, or sent an email about doing the 1,000-foot?
Yes, sir. So the 1,000-foot separation being proposed this morning is between structures. So if an existing residential recovery facility structure exists on a piece of property, and for example, let's say it's 500 feet off the side property line to an adjacent vacant parcel, okay? If a building permit comes in for a new home on the adjacent parcel, per the ordinance, I would be required to enforce the vacant tract to set back 500 feet off of their property, thereby, in essence, punishing the adjacent landowner and not the recovery facility. So that leads to the conversation of should the distance separation for the residential recovery facility be to their own property lines.
That's a point we hadn't really discussed until that was brought up on the other side by our inspector. It's something to consider, everyone, that,
Yeah.
I definitely think it should be considered to the property line, because I don't think you're gonna have that issue with the landfill. Nobody's gonna wanna build their house right on their property line if they've got the landfill's got the distance, but it imposes restrictions based on the party that has prescribed them on the other landowners, and I think that's wrong.
Well, we're not talking about the landfill.
It was an example, Marty.
that's just an example.
Robert, thanks for working on this. It kind of brings to mind, I thought we had talked about putting landscape buffers in with this, whatever we decide the footage is, to help buffer in between any residential and the recovery center. You remember anything about that?
Yes, sir, there were discussions to that effect, however, that did not make it into the ordinance.
We can add that though, as this part of this change though, right?
Yes, you can add whatever you'd like.
Time to do it.
I would like to state that a 1,000-foot radius around a structure, and in this example, the residential recovery facility, encompasses an area of 72 acres.
Yeah.
Your ordinance only requires a minimum of 5 acres for a facility.
Okay. So, Court, take a step back, think about that, and what are your thoughts? Reasonableness, I guess. Go ahead, start with.
I was thinking 500 feet and visual landscape barrier
500 feet
to
boundary,
the property line.
boundary line.
Mhm.
To their own property line.
Yes.
But I would like to add landscape buffer
Landscape
in
buffer,
between
yeah.
any residential, you know, and I think that's just the right thing to do.
I guess I'm the lone guy that doesn't, I mean, you know, like I've said before, we have drug addicts living in every zone designation in Franklin County. And the ones that are seeking help, we're putting mandates on them. And I know it's a numbers thing, that you will have more in one place, but these are the folks seeking help. And it's the not in my backyard thing, you know? If your kid was gonna die because they couldn't get off drugs, would you rather ship them 3 states away and check on them, or would you want them in our community getting help?
Well, I don't see it that way. I think we're trying to find a compromise. So
I do
we can have it in our
too, but
community.
you know, 1,000 feet, like Robert said, 72 acres. What's 500, Robert? You're probably a little quicker on the math. No, it'd be different because it's a circle.
37 and a
Yes.
half.
So are we gonna have to do this per zoning then? Because to me, this is kind of, I think we're all focusing on like the ag zone and the farm thing that was presented to us, but obviously we've okayed treatment
RB.
centers and other.
RB is not gonna.
Well, that's what I mean,
at all.
so I mean, then we're gonna
That'd be
kind
moved.
of get into that, you know, so it's almost site selective to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So what about that, Robert? Because it is contingent upon a certain zone where this is gonna come into play, and other zones it's not. So how would we, this would only come into play? Is that how you look at it? What, in a zone?
Well, I would just caution the court that creating an ordinance allowing a use, but establishing restrictions that ultimately prohibit the use is not appropriate.
Counterproductive.
Robert, sorry.
Go ahead.
Robert, can you refresh me, because I know this is mainly talking about the one applicant we've seen in front of us. What's the distance now between property line and I guess the existing home that they're looking to use as a
350, isn't it?
Hold on a minute. I'm gonna strike what Squire Muller
Okay.
said. Let's we're talking about future. You need to be careful.
Okay,
Saying that.
understandable, yeah, understandable.
So let's talk
that
about
distance is nice,
how we move forward in this in the future.
Okay.
Right, sure.
What is
That
it?
distance.
Go ahead, Robert. Can you, so how do we, is there a way to deal with a piece of this when it's one zone? And then if it's in another zone where there's not acreage involved?
Yes, sir, that can be done.
Okay, and how do we do that?
Well, you can designate, for example, say that you want a separation requirement within residential districts or certain residential districts, but allow it to be, or have no separation distance, say, in an industrial district or a commercial district. You could do that.
Oh, you mean they're allowed,
By
but,
zoning districts.
but the restrictions are by zoning district.
Yes, ma'am, and because that, you know, that does occur in the current ordinance, so
Yeah, that's
that's something I'm used to.
Okay.
Squire Tracy?
Robert, just a couple questions. And I kind of look at this right here as two separate things. I look at a facility and a residential dwelling. I'm trying to keep those separate. I see a facility as a large facility, then obviously a residential dwelling is a single-family home. And when those homes are built, back to the septic systems, when those homes are built, they're based off bedrooms per se, and what I would think would be occupancy. How are those things being addressed when we know that that's not into play per se? So if I've got a 4-bedroom home or a 3-bedroom home with 2 baths, and you would genuinely think there may be 5, 6 at the most people living there, what happens when you look up and there's 3 people in a room, so now you're at 10 or 12? How's those systems being looked at to make sure that there's enough that they're adequate per se?
Density within the residential dwelling, I think, because I've got that on the list here to ask about.
So the change in the example of a single-family home, when you change the use from a single-family home to a residential recovery facility, a new certificate of occupancy needs to be issued prior to the change of use. That will require an inspection of the property and information from the applicant as to the maximum occupant load for that location. We would coordinate with the health department at that time to do an assessment of the waste system to see if it is adequate and if it could accommodate that occupant load. We would also coordinate with the fire department and the fire chief. Secondly, any conditional use grants me the authority to inspect a use at any given time to ensure compliance, because conditional use permits are revocable by the decision of the Board of Zoning Adjustments after I report back to them. So if there's an issue of non-compliance, I'm allowed to form an inspection and report back to the Board of Zoning Adjustments for their action.
I see.
So Robert, on that same note, and thank you for answering that, because I think everybody had that on there. Does the health department have regulations in Franklin County for recovery centers to go by?
Yes, I met with them, and they do have a category that they would classify a recovery facility under. So,
okay.
Mr. Harp and I actually met with the health department together, Mr. John Cameron, who's the environmental specialist for the health department, and we went over those regulations. So the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. And then Judge, I guess again, I would love to add at a minimum, and I know we're still talking about the 1,000 foot, which I think we're gonna have to do something different there, but I still think regardless, there needs to be landscape buffers between, in certain zones. I think it'd be appropriate.
So Robert, with that idea in mind, would all zoning areas be, would a buffer landscape buffer be the same in all zoning areas, or, for example, industrial to residential, you already have that in place, but if this facility were to go into industrial, and it may end up being next to a professional office or something like that. How, if a buffer's not there and not required, but could we require particular buffering in certain areas, or does it have to be all areas where there's a residential facility? You understand my question?
You could amend the ordinance to impose a buffer requirement, any combination of a buffer, from one zone to the next, at the, to address the screening of the actual facility itself. So for instance, let's say that it locates in a professional office district with a general commercial zoning next to it. By ordinance, you can require that residential recovery facility to buffer, from that general commercial zoning classification. Or you could just make a blanket amendment to say that it shall be buffered on the both sides and rear property lines at a distance of X with material Y. Combination of, privacy fencing and landscaping, or just fencing in the professional office district. It's wide open to you right now of what you want to do. So, I guess what I'm trying to get at is you have the flexibility now to impose what you would like. Okay.
Robert,
and I encourage you to explore all options.
Would it be easier just to do something, if anything, abuts residential, and then if there's a case that they're presenting one, a subdivision, that when they come in front of P&Z, they just ask for like an exemption because it's not practical there? Is that easier to do it that way, or do we do it individually?
They would need to, at the time of the application for conditional use, they would also need to file for a waiver to the landscape requirement that would also be heard by the planning commission, in which they would have to prove that it's impractical or impossible for them to comply with the ordinance. An example may be high pressure gas line along, a given property line, or multiple easements in the yard. So there are examples in which a waiver may be granted. However, that still needs to be scrutinized by the staff with a recommendation to the board. So it's probably best that you add the buffer requirement and then let the process work through first and see to require that it does happen. And if it can't happen for a given reason, then we'll analyze it, present it to the board at a public meeting.
All right.
You've got a lot of work.
Sebastian, you've had your hand up.
Thank you, Judge. And I do appreciate the staff, bringing something to us today at court. I have a couple of things because we've talked about a number of things since this has gone in after hearing a couple of meetings from the Board of Zoning Adjustments. One of the things that Squire Tracy brought up was density within the residential dwelling of non-related people, because residential dwelling, you presume that relatives and or people that you brought into your family unit are there. So density of that, I think that's something that we need to talk about. How many people? I do think we need to talk about infrastructure impact. Initially, when we talked about this for multiple court meetings, we talked about water and water pressure. We've talked about waste. We've talked about, septic tanks. We've talked about gray water runoff. Here today we had the Farmdale Sanitation District meeting with us. They operate package plants. Are we going to put these in these small neighborhoods out, where there is a large density within what was developed as a residential dwelling? Package plants already can't handle the neighborhoods that they have. You're adding more people into a residential setting. So I just share that for our consideration. there's I guess, a larger issue of putting a for-profit business within a residential setting and how that alters the character of the residential setting itself. That was altering the character of residential settings has come up before. Are there insurance impacts, property value impacts? What is is there such a thing as a staffing requirement for the number of inpatient people? I think we covered that at one point. I just don't recall the detail, that's all. Can and should, we establish a number of these to be in Franklin County? I mean, I guess if we're talking about this in the grand scheme of things. And I think there's an ordinance on the books, so if there is a payment for a stay, because that's what you would do, somebody would pay to be in this facility. Does that fall within the short-term rental ordinance in Franklin County, which has a maximum occupancy clause based on the number of bedrooms, times 2 plus 4? I mean, I'm trying to do research just to bring here in the general. So I ask, those are things I bring up.
Well, what we're really getting bogged down here, because most of that's been talked about, a lot of that, Robert, where does the health department come in on the number of people and where it is and the sewers and the water and all of that? Don't they have to say yes you can and no you can't in those kind of situations? Yeah, I think the
Yes,
health
sir, that's
department
correct.
for safety, it answers a lot of those questions that you brought up, Squire.
I just think it's a critical thing. We know out in the county, we're staffed by, we have service from 7 different water districts. We've had issues out in the county with water and water pressure. And lines run, in some areas they're larger, and then they get smaller and smaller and smaller. So we know that potentially there are already potential pressure issues out there by not understanding the density, just not understanding the density in a residential dwelling. How is that gonna have downstream effects? Yes, you're right, we've talked about this. Squire Moore and I brought up several of these things when we first started talking about it. But I bring this, I just want to continue because as our counselor has said, as our planning director has said, now is the time to address these things. I'm not trying to bog this conversation down, but it's important that we cover this to make sure that folks in our community on every side of this issue understand that we are trying to be as thorough as we can when we talk about this, because it's important. It's important on all sides of the issue.
Well, my statement is, and I'm going to ask Robert again this question, I think that's covered. I think when you go through this process, the health department is a piece of, is there enough water? Is the water flow correct? Is the septic system correct?
Are they looking at downstream effects is my question. Are they only looking at that property, what it will do at that property? For a septic system?
Is that the case for any type of development or anything?
We haven't established a density. That's the first thing, I think Squire Tracy brought up the density. I'm sharing the density as well. And again, I'm not trying to be, I'm just trying to make sure because,
how can we answer that other than what's already in place? Because we don't control a lot of
anything
that.
in place.
We don't have, what control do we have on whether
we can set a limit and say that, the facility will house up to X number of people.
Well, that's already set by the health department, isn't it?
It isn't.
I don't think so, Judge.
Robert, doesn't the health department say that you can't put so many people in a facility based on what the septic system is and what the water flow is?
Yes, sir, but that is on a case-by-case basis, so one location may only allow 3 residents, the other may allow 9.
That's what I'm saying.
Depends on the system.
So what are you proposing, Squire? Let's just,
I'm throwing these issues out for us all to discuss. This isn't on Squire Sebastian's back to carry this for the entire Franklin County. This is on all 7 of us to talk about these issues here, because it's going to impact 52,000 people.
I understand. I'm not saying that it doesn't. I'm just saying we've discussed this and we've talked about the processes that are in place in Franklin County, unless we change the whole paradigm of how all this works, there are processes in place, there are checks and balances that are there to look at these. Now, that's all I'm saying.
Judge, she brings up a great point, because I think we have two things that have been in front of us a lot in the last 3 years. It's drainage downstream, which we know is a huge issue, and then lack of water pressure at certain areas. So I guess the question is, whoever oversees okaying let's just say the facility, is there anything we can ask them to do to make sure whoever's at the end of that line has adequate pressure still? Because they're going to be the ones that pay for it. Now, I'm not putting words in your mouth, Squire Sebastian, but I think.
No, but it's true.
Yeah, and same with, the water issue, and I know there's certain things in place, but I think we need to be careful, of what we're building. I mean, look at Slickaway Branch, it's a good example, it's something that we've talked about for the last 3.5 years, everything that gets built upstream and it's making things worse down, so.
Yeah.
Is there anything the fiscal court can do to help oversee or to maybe bump up those regulations to make sure that we're not causing future problems?
Yeah.
Well, I think they're regulated, Tom. The fire, if they have to have fire sprinklers, they can't do that on 4-inch lines. It has to be a 6-inch line.
That's another piece of it. You're
Well,
exactly
Sounds
right.
like that's about to
So-
happen.
They built a tower or whatever, I mean,
Yeah,
there's
I
ways
know, what
around
are they
it,
gonna-
but they're cost prohibitive.
Yeah, and 6-inch line's not gonna have an issue downstream, but if they're allowed to do it on a 2, 3, or 4-inch line, I don't know, I don't think there's gonna be a problem unless there is a fire event and they're short on water and somebody gets burned up.
So there's Chief Brewer right
I was
there.
thinking the same thing.
Chief Brewer?
I'm glad you're here.
As far as the water issue, it's my understanding, based on the capacity load, as to whether or not it would be required to have a sprinkler system. And then that's the determination for the need of the water flow, falls back to the water districts to do their calculations to see if they can support the required flow for that system. That's my understanding with talking with Robert Hewitt and Building Inspector Greg Owens.
So is that, let's say that process is moving forward, and they're gonna put 15 people in, and it's on a 4-inch line in a facility out in Ball Knob or wherever, and we're working through that boundary and all that stuff. So is there consideration by you or the water district or Robert, you, in what can and how that will affect that particular home and how it affects downstream from that?
From the understanding I have, because I don't know exactly what the lines are capable of supporting and what they're not supporting in all the different districts based on their sizes and based on their number of occupants that are on those lines. So that falls back on the water district to make that determination based on that facility and that request to see if that line can support it. And if that can't support it, then in my opinion, or in my understanding, then they would either have to come up with an alternate means or then that would be denied and would not be able to proceed.
Robert, does the water district have, is the water district consulted as development moves forward on water pressure and its effect on that particular area, that particular piece that's being looked at and down the road and downstream from it, or down the line from it?
District is.
Yes, water district and all other utilities, along with emergency services, are asked for their input. That is made part of the staff report that goes before the Board of Zoning Adjustments.
Okay. So there are steps in place to make sure that when something goes in that could adversely affect downline or downstream or whatever, that it's looked at. So it may not be enough to some of you, it may not, I don't know, but there are checks and balances. Right, Robert, am I correct in saying that?
That is correct, sir. That occurs during our technical review of the application. And back to address the question to Chief Brewer, if, for example, let's say that the facility's proposing 20 residents and it needs 18 sprinkler heads. If based on the flow calculations and pressure provided by the water district, as well as the designer of the sprinkler system, if it cannot accommodate 18 heads in that example, then it will not allow the occupancy at the requested amount. So therefore, it would have to be modified to such a level where flow and pressure from the water can accommodate the number of heads required to serve the facility.
Who requires those sprinklers? Is it the fire chief or the state fire marshal or health department?
Kentucky Building Code.
Okay, let's get back, let's kind of refocus. Let's get back to the question in front of us, and that is distance from either dwelling to dwelling or distance from boundary lines, property lines. What's the court, what's the court's thoughts? What do you want to do? And with this particular item that's in front of us. Right, Tracy?
Judge, as you referenced earlier, I think it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, zone to zone. I would ask for Robert to look at it and then look at each zoning, and then to make his recommendation per zone. If there's ones in there that don't make sense because they don't comply, then we pull them out. As you say so elegantly, this is a living document.
Well, yeah, and that's true, but this is obviously, I mean, this is clearly based on a rural residential zone. In a rural residential zone, we can go to that, we can address that really quick, because we know that one. And so, Robert, speak to what Squire Tracy is saying. We're not looking at changes other than buffer changes, possible buffer changes in any other zone. Is that correct, except in a rural residential where there is property, right? Or am I wrong in that?
Well, I thought the discussion was to look at each zoning classification and find an appropriate buffer based on its zoning designation, and, because they vary. And I'm happy to provide a document to the court for consideration that would provide buffering appropriate to each zoning classification, in my opinion, based on the lot size and the potential for the facility located at, say, a given occupant load. Okay, because for instance, if as today, if 1,000 foot is required, let's say in the rural residential district, well, when you try to install a 1,000 foot water line, you're losing pressure every foot you go. So it's allowed me the opportunity to go back and research the infrastructure as it relates to zoning classifications, and then prepare appropriate measures for each zoning district for the court to consider.
For buffering or for distance?
Yeah.
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
So now you're saying that we would look at distance in all zones?
I'll prepare an analysis that can address both distance and buffering.
Okay. Okay, that was kind of...
Just to get some thought going with the court.
Okay. Squire Sebastian?
Thank you, Judge. So the other items I talked about, density within a residential dwelling. Do we talk about that, or are you saying that's already, Judge, you seem to say all the things I talked about were already handled by somebody else. I just want to make sure I understand that appropriately.
I'll let Robert
So I'm
answer.
trying to
Ask that
answer.
question to Robert. There we go. Robert?
So I have an idea to that, in that maximum client occupancy could be a tiered approach For example, 1 to 5 clients, say for, I'm just spitballing here. 1 to 5 clients, 25-foot separation from the property line, with, privacy fencing on 3 sides. 5 to 10, let's say you go to 1.5 acres, say a triple row of evergreens around the 3 sides and rear, along with, let's say a 75-foot separation from the property line. So it's a tiered approach. 15 to 20, you go to 5 acres with triple row evergreen, blah blah blah, or screening around the structure itself, or the adequate to block the view but still allow exterior room for activities. So a tiered approach is something that I've considered that the board may, or excuse me, that the fiscal court may entertain.
So
the larger the tract, the higher the density.
all right, thank you. And so with that, will we have a maximum occupancy number for a single family residential dwelling?
For a recovery facility?
Yes, sir.
I think that would be wise, specific to residential zoning districts. When you get into the commercial and industrial zones, I'm not sure the building code will ultimately determine in those districts, okay, the Kentucky Building Code. Because when I consider a facility such as this, and as I mentioned in my research prior to the adoption of the ordinance, some of these are medical based and some are non-medical based. And so if we have a facility that must locate in the commercial or industrial districts, that density, could be much higher. So I think we could consider capping the density in residential districts, but allowing the building code to determine the capacity in the non-residential districts.
Thank you. Yes, sir, I'd look forward to seeing that.
Okay.
And again, with the infrastructure impact, so I'm going to go back through these items, and I just want to be very clear that I have raised this issue multiple times now, so I want to be just clear what I
Where you
understand.
said a number of facilities in the county. I'm interested in that.
Okay, y'all can, you hit that next if you want,
I'll do it.
sir. But I just don't want to lose the
We
things
cap
I
it
got
at
on my
5,
list.
10, 15, what do we cap it at?
Robert, while we are talking about that, just to circle back, in your professional opinion, do you think there needs to be a cap on the number of facilities permitted in Franklin County?
I think it's appropriate to consider putting a cap on it. I reflect back on items such as the issuance of liquor licenses. Only so many are granted to a given jurisdiction. I'm sure there's other examples out there. So I think it's appropriate for the court to consider what that number is. I don't know right now, but I think it's appropriate to consider, and I would refer back to your legal counsel, the county attorney, as to the legality of capping the number of facilities within your jurisdiction.
So that's a point, again, that was on this list. So infrastructure impact, I just want to make sure I understand. So if we are out in the county and there's a tiered effect for water lines, the initial head of that water line starts at a 6-inch water line, it goes down to a 4-inch, then ultimately at the end on the same area in the same neighborhood, it goes down to 2. So did I understand it to say that is the water information coming from the water district will inform that element of the conversation? Did I understand that right or wrong?
No, you understood correctly. It would be the water supplier as well as the designer of the sprinkler system.
All right.
They have to go hand in hand. They have to work together on that.
All right, so let's get to the waste. So septic tanks are very prevalent out in the county. However, there are some neighborhoods that are served by a small package plant or multiple package plants. Based on the density, do we need to come back and reevaluate depending on where it is? Because it will be served by these very small package plants that, as the judge said, there's a lot of maintenance on those right now, just for single families that are living in those areas. And then there's gray water runoff, we have a lot of floodplain. So I just want to make sure that we're very clear on how we're dealing with waste coming out of a professional facility now, whether it's in a residential setting or somewhere else.
So on the topic of waste, the county has three providers, if you will. You have private on-site septic or lagoon systems. You have your sanitation district or other treatment plants owned by third parties. And then you have public sewers provided by the city of Frankfort. In the event of a location in the absence of a public sewer, i.e. on-site septic or lagoon systems, the health department is consulted to determine the appropriateness and the size of whichever of those two options they deem appropriate. In the event of private or public systems, my office submits to them the proposal and requests a capacity analysis to determine if they can handle the flow based on the number of occupants proposed. That's part of our technical review.
So does that also include those package plants in some neighborhoods out in the county?
Yes, so whether it be the Farmdale Sanitation District or Kentucky American Water, we would reach out to them to ensure that they have adequate capacity in their system, whether it be the collection system and or the treatment plant, to accommodate this additional use.
Okay. And traffic impacts, when this goes out, do we have to get a study from the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet or anything like that? Because a number of our county roads, are in the county road system, not necessarily the state road system. They are narrow and windy. We've all got them in our district, and there's you can have a facility potentially anywhere in the county. So just again, how is that addressed so that we can be assured that safety for individuals coming into a facility like this, safety for existing residents, all of those things continues to be maintained? Because I think safety is on everybody's mind.
So, road capacity is addressed through our technical review. We don't necessarily require a full traffic study because conditional uses, unless they reach a certain threshold, the traffic engineer would say it's not warranted. However, in Franklin County Code of Ordinances, section 155.105, subsection A, states street or road capacity and condition is adequate to serve anticipated additional traffic. So that's the first item that we addressed in our review.
Okay. So with a larger issue of putting a for-profit business within a residential setting, and how that alters the character of the residential setting, is that addressed somewhere in our ordinances? Because this is not necessarily an in-home business.
Yes, that's also covered in section 155.105 sub D. The proposed use will have no adverse effect upon the adjacent or surrounding property.
So is that equally weighed? So if one of these comes before the Board of Zoning Adjustments and you have 75 residents who turn out and say this will impact the character of the neighborhood, or a member of the Board of Zoning Adjustments sit there and say, I can't see how this does not impact the character of the neighborhood, what happens at that point?
Well, then
what trumps what?
Well, also 155.105 sub C of the conditional use criteria, it states the conditional use proposed is in accordance with the intent of the zoning district within which it will be located. So there are two occasions in which the proposed use is addressed specific to zoning as well as its surroundings.
So can you say that about it is in conformance with the intent of the neighborhood? Can you I just want to make sure I understand that part right, because that.
So, the code reads, the conditional use proposed is in accordance with the intent of the zoning district within which it will be located. That's 155.105.
I am really impressed.
So you have to check off whether that's a true statement or not on each.
Yes, sir.
Each
Yes, staff does an analysis of each one and either makes a positive or negative finding in the staff report.
So in a single-family neighborhood, if I live in Farmdale subdivision and somebody buys a house and they want to put a residential facility, and so you know how densely that neighborhood is, or Coolbrook, you know how dense that neighborhood is, and they want to put 30 people in a house, that doesn't change the, how would that, I just want to make sure I understand how that would be reviewed, because I don't know, I haven't had to review that. That is not my background to do so. So I'm just trying to understand how that is looked at and what factors are considered in that regard. Because there seem to be a whole lot of questions from the Board of Zoning Adjustments about another matter, and I'm just trying to make sure I'm covering the bases, as you said and as the judge said. Let's do it right. Let's get it right. Let's try to do it right. And we're all, I think, sitting around the table trying to figure out how to do that.
So ordinance section 155.105 covers the general conditions applied to a conditional use permit. Additionally, the fiscal court has imposed additional conditions to a residential recovery facility that are also addressed by staff, and findings are established by staff and an ultimate recommendation to the Board of Zoning Adjustments. So in your example of 30 residences, or excuse me, 30 occupants.
Individuals, yes.
Yeah, or say 30 occupants in a home with, let's say, 3 bedrooms and 1 bath.
Yes, sir.
Would likely receive a negative finding because first of all, the home wasn't constructed to accommodate that number of individuals. Plus, it would have to be sprinkled as well. Anything over 15 occupants, it has to be sprinkled. So, that example would not likely receive a favorable recommendation by staff.
Okay. So I understand, and I mentioned this, I think, as one of the final comments I had. If there is a payment for a stay within the county, does that fall within the short-term rental ordinance for Franklin County, which has a maximum occupancy clause based on the number of bedrooms that you just mentioned, times 2 plus 4? Does this fall within that? Does that have to meet the same criteria as that ordinance? I don't know. I don't know what's applicable and what's not.
Sure. No, the residential recovery facility would not blend with a short-term rental, if you will. So they are 2 unique defined uses within our code, and it's up to me and my staff to distinguish between the 2. So, like we say here in the office, if it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, then it's a duck.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Square them up.
Thank you, Judge. Hey, Robert, we were talking about if you could look at, as far as a maximum amount. I know previously when this whole conversation started, you kind of looked at the surrounding counties. So I was just wondering if it'd be worth looking at, Fayette County, Scott County, and things like that, who have been doing these recovery centers for a while, and see what if they have maximum amounts of facilities that are allowed, if it's per, population and things like that. And then the other thing is, obviously you've been saying a lot in your findings as far as the health department and the building inspector. So I was just wondering if it wouldn't be worth a meeting with them to kind of help you come up with some of these answers, just so we don't keep going back and forth, because a lot of things I think that the court has asked has kind of been about the health department. So just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Well, yes, thank you. And this will be a team approach to crafting this ordinance. I couldn't do it without the fire chief, building inspector, health department, utility companies. So yes, it's going to require a team effort. And fortunately, we have a technical review team, so, I can gather that group, send out the information, get the responses, so that, that's a good point. And then back to your first question about reaching out to other jurisdictions that have these facilities. Of course, I'm happy to do that. However, in my initial research, I found there's a lot of inconsistency with jurisdictions' treatment of these facilities or their lack of treatment for these facilities, which was troubling as I tried to find consistency amongst our, adjacent and proximity jurisdictions. So, but I will go back and see if they do specifically have a maximum number per jurisdiction, and then I can report that back to the court as well.
That's fine. I just don't want you, reinventing the wheel, obviously, and that, as far as if they've been doing it and one of them does it well, then maybe, we look at that, but thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, my fear is the wheel's never been created on this type of use. And so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Robert, Mr. Harp is in the meeting room here, and I would assume you and Mr. Harp will have a conversation as well.
Mr. Harp and I speak quite regularly.
Okay.
We've never seen him in person, have we, Judge?
I told him that when he came in, yeah. Squire Booth?
Well, because of Squire Sebastian's comments, I am really impressed with the work that the Planning and Zoning Department of our county government does, and the knowledge that Robert Hewitt possesses about that process. I just want to commend him for that.
Thank you, Squire Booth. That was nice of you to say that.
That's true.
So, Robert, let's review. In the next few minutes, let's review what's being asked of you. Okay? So obviously we're looking at what this item was in particular, and that is a buffer separation, whether it be from building to building, or I believe the court is looking at from boundary line out. Okay? Then the other aspects of it are a buffer in the different zones. You brought up a tier requirement or a tier form of residential numbers in the different zones as well. And then in working with the different utilities as well as health departments and overseers that water districts, that what can and can't be done with utilities, right? Does that kind of encapsulate what we've talked about for you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If I could just go down my list real fast.
That would be helpful. Thank
That we
you.
would allow, like if we put a cap on it at 10 facilities or something like that.
Okay, and then last but not least, the number of facilities, whether that can or can be done, and if so, what would that be the recommendation for Franklin County? Okay, go ahead, Robert.
So my list, number one would be reviewing buffering / landscaping, which is separate from separation. I'm talking about buffering, visual screening, if you will, okay? Buffer / landscaping. Next item is separation, which is linear distance from property lines. Number two is density, both in a tiered fashion as well as capability of facilities, capability of utilities and emergency services to serve a given density. And then lastly, the maximum number per jurisdiction within the unincorporated area. Does that match everyone else's notes?
Yeah.
Timber, and all this will come
Wow.
back in an ordinance form, is that correct? Or how?
He should, well, once Robert looks into this, he will, and then I
No one
would
else
think
can
use
do
the
the
same
same
template for the resolution that he has now. and bring back.
All right,
Well, Judge Wells, would you mind if I prepared this and presented it back to the court in a presentation section prior to the drafting of the final ordinance?
I don't mind
What, a
that.
working
Is everybody
session?
okay with that?
Yeah. because we
Or
might
another discussion,
change
okay.
some numbers.
Okay. Mr. Harp, I think out of congeniality, I think it would be appropriate to allow you to say something at this point in time.
Thank you, Judge. I do have a few observations that I think the court may find helpful. And they are, as I'm sure everyone else's notes are, rather all over the place, so please forgive me if I'm a little scattered. Someone asked, I don't remember who that was, but someone had asked what the size of a tract with a required 500-foot buffer was. And I had that in my notes, actually, because with all these numbers being thrown around, I had actually run those numbers. That would effectively immediately change the minimum acreage size if you imagine a perfect lot, in other words, a perfect circle. If you're going to require a 500-foot buffer and that lot is a perfect circle around that location, that would change that lot to a minimum of 18 acres immediately, just like that. Now, as you know, and as I know, there are no perfect circle lots out there, so the actual practical impact is there's going to be a much more significant minimum requirement if you require a 500-foot buffer. That changes it from requiring a 5-acre or a 10-acre lot to requiring practically more like 20, 25, 30, who knows how many acres it may ultimately require to find that piece of property that meets those requirements. I would point out that, you know, this court has taken up these issues many times over the past year. We've talked about this at great length. I think that a lot of the concerns relative to infrastructure, density, as I said in a letter that I presented to the Fiscal Court a couple of meetings ago, or maybe a last meeting, I think it is a mistake for the Fiscal Court to attempt by ordinance to regulate or to micromanage things that are already managed appropriately by other bodies. In other words, the health department already has its job. It already has to come out and approve of the location, has to approve of the wastewater treatment on site. It already does that. As Mr. Hewitt has mentioned today, one of the initial things that they do in taking up this issue and in reviewing a proposed facility is to look at some of those, as Squire Sebastian put it, those downstream effects. We reach out to the water department. Is there going to be enough water adequacy? They give them an opportunity to look at that. They look at the traffic impact. One of the themes that I have said many times in front of this court is these facilities are not all created equal. There are many different ways to approach recovery and addiction recovery, and to treat them all as if they are all the same is a mistake. And this is why we made the presentation early on to make this a conditional use, because to refresh the court's memory and awareness as to that process, that means that an applicant must go in front of the Board of Zoning Adjustments. That once they file that application, planning staff goes through those conditions, they go through that checklist, as Mr. Hewitt pointed out, to see whether this proposed facility is going to be able to check off on those boxes. Staff then makes a recommended finding to the Board of Zoning Adjustments. That recommendation either recommends a finding of a positive finding or a negative finding based upon the information available to planning staff. That goes in front of the Board of Zoning Adjustments, and the Board of Zoning Adjustments then takes that up, hears that evidence, and then also hears evidence from others in the community. Now, that's a key word, evidence. The Board of Zoning Adjustments is a quasi-judicial body that actually takes evidence. Now, that's different than taking objections. The Board of Zoning Adjustments is required to make its decisions based upon actual evidence in front of it. And so, as Squire Sebastian pointed out, she was at the two Board of Zoning Adjustments meetings that have taken up this issue. I was at those meetings as well. And what the Board of Zoning Adjustments didn't hear, what they did hear was a lot of objections. What they did not hear was a lot of evidence. There's a big difference in someone bringing forth evidence of a problem, evidence of impact to the community, and in neighbors showing up and saying, not in my backyard. And that is what I would caution, what I would implore this court not to do, is not to do what this may sound harsh, and I apologize how direct this may sound, but it appears possible that the court is prepared to do one thing and say another. And what I mean by that is this, is that I believe it's true that every member of this court to a person has said, we need residential recovery facilities in this county. This is a problem. This is something we do not have. We need recovery. We need recovery facilities. But if you say we need recovery facilities and we provide an ordinance that says, yeah, we can have recovery facilities, but in that same ordinance make it impossible or practically impossible or price people out of the market by requiring them to buy not 5 acres or 10 acres, but 20 and 30. If that's what you do, then the ordinance may say we want residential recovery facilities, but the practical effect is that nobody's going to locate residential recovery facilities in this county. I believe it was Squire Blackburn that pointed out at the last meeting, I did go back and watch that meeting, pointed out that in these residential recovery or residential zones, rural residential, agricultural zones, you can locate a whole lot of livestock. I believe the example was used was pigs. Yeah, within 15 foot of that residential buffer. And as Squire Blackburn said, we're talking about humans, we're talking about people. The very first ordinance that Mr. Hewitt put up earlier today talking about a buffer requirement says that you can put an actual landfill, the garbage, the refuse, within 750 feet of a residence of someone's home. And yet some of the numbers that have been proposed to locate a recovery facility from a residential structure have been numbers more than that, like 1,000 or even 1,500 feet. I would suggest that it would be a mistake to treat recovery facilities and people in recovery more negatively than we treat things like pigs and things like garbage. I think that's a mistake.
Mr. Hart, let me clarify. We were unaware of those boundaries when this was discussed. We were also very clear that there was that comparison once we saw what those boundaries are. So,
right.
So give the court credit that the court is aware and treats humans in a fair way. We just were not aware, so you can't point a finger at them and saying that they don't care.
No, I understand, and I did say I realize what I'm about to say may sound a bit candid or harsh, however put that. I don't mean to lecture the court. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I am trying to say is that the context matters and that analogy matters. And so I believe that it is a mistake to require residential recovery facilities to have more burdensome and more onerous requirements upon them than a lot of other entities or a lot of other operations in the county. So I understand. I hope I did not offend anyone. That's not my intent at all. But those are in fact the realities of what the code currently requires with regard to those things.
Okay. You may get. Do you have any other points that you want?
I did want to point out that with regard to the landscape buffer, there is a provision that is in the ordinance that was adopted that does provide for the Board of Zoning Adjustments to consider landscape buffer. It simply says that a landscape buffer is not presumed to be required, but it acknowledges that the Board of Zoning Adjustments can require a landscape buffer if they believe that it's appropriate. Once again, what I would submit is that the Board of Zoning Adjustments in the one test case, they could have done that. In fact, they did not, and it was, I think, just out of an absence of evidence that that was necessary or required. And so there is already a provision in the existing ordinance that this court adopted back in February that provides for, acknowledges that landscape buffers might be appropriate. It just doesn't answer, it again takes a one size does not necessarily fit all approach and acknowledges that's something that the Board of Zoning Adjustments should look at, though it doesn't actually require it in all cases. I think that is largely what I wanted to point out. I just would say that, again, just to ask the court not to say one thing, adopt an ordinance that allows for residential recovery facilities, and then make it so burdensome, so difficult to actually comply with all those requirements and to follow that flow chart, that frankly, no one's going to want to locate here. And that's what I've asked this court to consider and to not do. I really appreciate the opportunity to address the court this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Harp. And as you can see, the court is trying to find a balance. The court is not trying to say yes on one hand and no on the other. The court is trying to find that balance because your issue, you're on one side of the issue, the court hears the other side of the issue with the residents, and it is incumbent upon the court to listen. And as part of that listening, there is two sides. And so the court is trying to find that balance, and we're working the best we can to find that balance. So I appreciate your thoughts, and I ask you that to talk with Robert as we go through this process, okay?
Certainly.
Squire Tracy?
Thanks, Judge. Robert, quick question. Mr. Hart mentioned things being regulated by other entities. Does it fall upon P&Z to make sure, oversee facilities and owners are operating legally? Is it if you all received a complaint, does that fall under under your umbrella?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Any other questions? Mr. Harp, thank you. Thank you. We do appreciate your work very much. Thank you. All right, Robert, let's go to the next one. Oh, my goodness, and after what we've gone through this morning, I bet you're saying, oh, thank you for the... Okay, I guess since we just lost two magistrates, so
Might lose another.
yeah, let's hang on. Let's take a 5-minute recess. It's roughly 11:10, 11:15. So 5-minute recess. Thank you, Cable 10. 5-minute recess. Thank you. Item number 10, authorization to hire a full-time staff planner in planning and zoning. Mr. Hewitt, and you can wipe that smile off your face because I know how happy you are at this point with this.
Yes, sir. Once again, I would really like to express my gratitude and a big thank you to the Fiscal Court for allowing this position to go full-time. There are a lot of things happening in this community, and in order to serve the public, we're at a point where a new full-time position is wanted. So thank you. The court approved this position to full-time on July the 2nd of this year, 2022. The advertisement was placed in the State Journal newspaper, Indeed.com, the Franklin County website, and our Facebook page. We received one application, and that applicant was interviewed by the interview committee consisting of Judge Wells, Deputy Judge Harrod, Human Resources Director Betty Jo Rednauer, and myself. The candidate does satisfy the call as set forth in the job description, and the interview committee recommends to fill the full-time position with the recommended applicant. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? All right, Robert, I believe we may be lucky enough to have him here Monday, is that correct? If the vote goes to the affirmative?
Fingers crossed, yes,
Amen,
Monday.
amen, amen, amen. All right,
Thank you,
man.
fella.
What a great candidate.
At least one applicant, yes.
What a great candidate, too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Robert. Any questions? Okay, the next item, item 11, we've already talked about with the houseboat hall. The
Yes,
next
ma'am.
item is,
On that one with the houseboat, I know Tommy had referenced 5,000 to 6,000. Do we need to put a dollar amount on that? Up to 3,000, that would be.
well, you get up to 6,000 split by the city and the
Correct.
county.
Right.
Okay? Is that okay? We'll do that. We'll up to
Yeah.
6,000 split by the city. Now, the question would be, we only have one opportunity to get it done, and if you say that and it goes to $6,002, then it could null and void it.
I'll say not to exceed 7,000, or however you want to do it, whatever you think.
No, he's saying that just to put an amount on it would be bad.
It's not bad if it
But
comes back
Smart
at
Tracy's one,
25,000.
we don't spend $30,000.
No, he said he'd come back to us if it's gonna be.
Oh,
He
okay.
did.
Okay.
He did say that, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we've talked,
Let's say 6,000. All right, is that okay?
You just said.
Okay.
No, he said if we went over 6,000, so let's just say the cost would be $6,000 split. Let's don't say up to, let's just say $6,000 split by 50-50 by the city and the county. Is that fair enough? And that if it's 6,001 or $2 or whatever, if it's more than that, Tommy said he'd come back to us. Is that fair enough? I'm just throwing it out.
absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. All right, the next item is authorization to approve a resolution. John, you're on for 1, 2, 3, 4 probably items. Welcome, John Mitchell. Authorization to approve a resolution approving projects recommended by District 5 maintenance staff on rural secondary roads. John, this is important monies to us.
Yeah, this one's just for the state projects. This is what the state has recommended. This is what they're
For
gonna
county
do.
roads, yeah.
They're for state roads. So that's their paving program for this upcoming year.
Do you have that list in front of you, John, that you could read off
Yeah.
for the public?
Yeah, it looks like they're gonna finish the rest of Camp Pleasant Road, which they done half of it last year. And, they're gonna do part of St. John's all the way up to almost Monroe Lane. And then, looks like Duncan Road, there's a little short stretch there, right past Industrial 3 intersection there, up to the county line. It looks like what they've got laid out there.
Yes.
It's really,
Yeah.
Okay, anything else, John, on that one?
No, that's all I've seen from what they've sent me.
Okay, let's go to the next item. A resolution adopting, approving the execution of rural secondary program and municipal aid.
Now, this is what they call flex money that we get from the state. We turn in some recommendations for some work on our roads. And I turned in Stony Creek Road and North Stony Creek Road and Bradburn Court. And they have approved my recommendations. And if we get this passed through, we can hopefully get them done this fall. And it's a reimbursable expense, so they pay us back.
Okay. The next one.
We put in the grant, I think Brittany put in the compost grant for a chipper. So I think we need a new wood chipper. That's a big business. So we're gonna advertise for bids for this one. The state contract's a little wishy-washy and more on what you can get and what you can't get. So we're gonna jump outside and see what it looks like out there. We do have grant funds paying for it.
Brian Waller.
Thank you, Judge. Hey, John, thanks for being on today. How much was the grant for? I'm just curious what a new chipper cost.
It was 45, I think, is what we put in, somewhere like that, somewhere in that.
45,000?
Yeah.
Asked the state for $46,548.06 to cover a quote that was initially given to us.
Perfect. Thank you, Brittany. Hey, John, while we're on that, I know wood chipper is an extremely dangerous piece of equipment. Is there special training that has to be done from our road department in order to use that?
We didn't have no, it's factory training when we get one, and that's basically it. But we do, any new people that come in, we do go over all the safety items on that thing. So, and they're a lot better than they used to be, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Brittany, thank you for getting that grant. That's great. It was a very, very much needed piece of machinery for our road department and our community. All right, the next item is, John, this is big, and I think could affect our fire department as well. Approve an employee contract for repayment purposes of expenses incurred by the county for employees required to attend an entry-level driver training program, or CDL, Class A or Class B commercial driver's license, CDL, as part of the job, that if they were to leave, they'll have to pay back that amount. John, you brought this up, and it is going to affect other areas in county government.
Yeah, I believe my department, and I think the one position, the mechanic at the fire department, now they're requiring him to have at least a B. But this all came about when the federal government changed the rules on being able to get this license. I mean, it's created havoc among all counties, states. I mean, everybody's trying to figure out how to go about doing it. It's kind of, I don't know, there's a lot of muddy water there to try to figure out how to do it. I do have a opening, but I didn't want to advertise my opening until we figure out how to do this. Before we done in-house training, we could do it all on our own. It wasn't no big deal. But it's changed. So now we're going to have to outsource, and it's going to cost some money. And it's, I've talked to everybody around town, the city, the plant board, the trucking people around here. I mean, everybody's doing the same type of thing just to cover some expenses. If, we don't want somebody to come in 6 months, get their license, and then turn around and leave and say thanks,
And I'd like to add that other county fiscal courts are doing the same thing. The memorandum that I attached to this agenda item is language similar to, I believe it was Nelson County. So it was a topic of discussion between all the counties.
Sparrow Muller.
Thank you, Judge. Hey, John, so you could explain to everybody real quick what they've changed. It's my understanding that you can't just go on your own to test for the licenses. You have to go through a program. Is that what it is?
Yes, you have to be a registered trainer. You have to register with the federal transportation, whatever it is. But you have to get registered and qualified to be a trainer. But then there's so many hours of book work, basically, that has to be completed, and then so many hours of on the road training that has to be completed. And most of these places that we've looked at, there's several around. Yeah, I mean, they're $4,000 or $5,000, and it could take a month to do. And the good thing about, I guess, that side of it is it takes the headache away from us and the time that we have to spend training it. But they provide all the equipment, materials, everything, the truck, the whole 9 yards to complete the program.
So it doesn't affect anybody that currently has their license. It's just for people who are wanting to get licenses, commercial licenses, correct?
It still affects the classes. That's the thing. If you need to upgrade from a B to an A, you still have to go through part of this program to get up to the A class.
Okay. Thank you.
So John, is this going to make it more difficult to get into a class because there's going to be a big demand, or is it going to make it less difficult to get into a class training for like a new employee?
No, I mean, we can get them in, really quick. They say they start classes, most of them, they start a new class every week. So getting them into a class is not a problem. But I wanted to change some things, on our probationary periods. I wanted to scoot this out. It used to be, it was 6 months. You had to get your CDL, and that was all timed in with the probationary period. But now, I think we ought to get over the probationary period hump first, and then give them 6 months to get the CDL. So, I don't want to just jump in with both feet all at once.
Okay. Muller.
Thank you, Judge. Hey, Mr. County Attorney, how does this impact us when we have language in here that if somebody leaves, obviously before 3 years, they have to pay us back? From a legal standpoint, what does that look like?
It would result in a civil action against them for repayment of whatever was left or owed when they leave.
Okay, so then I guess our HR keeps up with that if that were to happen?
I would assume so, and then a referral would be made to the office to initiate litigation if it's necessary.
Okay, thank you.
But they've done a really tight job. Those in transportation and distances have been vetted very clearly with Mr. Mitchell and Ms. Harrod about those aspects if they mess up.
Okay.
Look at this though, if they're terminated for other causes, layoffs, et cetera, it's a little bit different. But I think they've done a really good job. And I spoke to that in error earlier, but that's the issue I was talking about.
Thank you.
Okay. Question? All right, John. Okay, go ahead, Tim.
Are you all okay with the language to add into the admin code for chapter 30, just be a new section? Okay.
That's in this one?
Yeah, it gives a period if they leave within 12 months, or they leave within 24, if they leave within 36.
Okay.
The repercussions, mentions the layoffs, as our counselor said.
And they pay all the court costs. Okay, sounds fair.
Yep.
Okay.
Rich reviewed it, he's okay with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, the next item is authorization to enter into a lease with DFI for the professional office space on the 3rd floor. We talked about this at our last meeting. Any questions on that?
I do, just quickly, Judge. It indicates in here that we're not gonna look at this contract annually. The lease will automatically renew. I'd like to look at it annually.
This
I'd
is-
like to take that out.
This is the exact contract we have with CASA, so that's
Yep.
where this language came
Sure,
from.
I understand. CASA's a little different than this organization. And I just want to encourage the court to look at the rate in the contract. You know, we're dealing with taxpayer money here. I just want to make sure that we cover whatever expenses may be. And I don't know if $50 a month's going to cover that. I just want to make sure. Since this is an organization that's not necessarily they are,
Part of common government
yeah.
is part of.
But I mean, I think it's a good thing that we have them.
CASA, and the CASA only pays $1. Isn't that right?
I understand, I think they have different missions. Downtown Frankfurt seems to be a promotional, organization to promote, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And CASA seems to, serve the clientele that they serve. It's a little different to me.
you're-
But I may be,
Are there 4 votes to add review on an annual basis?
I vote for that.
There's 2.
I think that'd be good. But I do know, and I will say, after our last court meeting, I met with Kayla, I won the Downtown Concert Series, and like we assumed, this is kind of a stepping stone. This
yeah,
isn't where they want to
absolutely.
stay.
This is not where they want to be.
Right, so I do
think
know.
they want to be somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Visible, because
Yeah.
they need to be
Right,
visible.
so this time next year, they might not even be
Yeah.
there, so, but yeah, I just wanted to share that.
But are there
okay.
4 votes to add that?
To
To
review.
look at it annually?
Yes.
Yes,
You
I
said
would like that.
Marty's
Yeah.
1,
Yes.
Sebastian's 3, Squire Tracy, did you say
Yeah,
you
I'm fine
wanted?
with
Yeah.
All right, that's 4, okay. All right, so we'll add that in there, Tamara.
Okay, it won't terminate annually to require to be renewed, it'll just be reviewed.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, I think it's fair.
Got it? Got the verbiage? Okay, the next item is authorization to hire a part-time seasonal park and golf employee. The next item is treasurer's report. Susan, are you on, or is Kate doing this? I'm not sure. Susan doing this, Tamara?
Yes, Susan is on.
Susan, the treasurer's report.
I'm here.
Payment of
I'm here.
claims.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Treasurer's report. I'm here. I'm here. Can you hear me? Yes.
Wait, you skipped one. You skipped the parking.
Mentioned.
Susan, do you have your feedback on by any chance? Because I think it's getting feedback.
Sorry, it's me.
Who
My
are
brother.
you?
Do you have your feedback by any chance? Because I think it's getting feedback.
Okay, is it Susan? Andrew, can you cut Susan off and talk to Susan and tell her that we can't get that?
Okay, here we go. That's better. Thank you, Susan.
How's intro music?
I was just taking you all out to the twilight zone there. So, we're looking at our treasurer's report. Also included was the month ending July 31st for a monthly report, and then as always, a copy of the revenue and expense report for the point in time that the court packets went out. I don't really have any specific comments on the treasurer's report unless there's some specific concerns.
I just have a question, Madam Treasurer. Thank you, Judge. Under software support and license, under the treasurer's line item, it looks like
Yes.
we've gone ahead. Is that an annual subscription? And that's how that
Yes.
was paid out? Just double
Yes.
checking if it was annual or installment. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any?
Susan, thanks for being with us. On the similar lines, workman's comp insurance, is that just paid up for the year?
We pay that in advance, just like other types of insurances are paid. It's based on an estimated payroll, and then at the end of the year, we're audited. I just completed the audit for fiscal year 2022 and submitted it with the actual payrolls, and we will receive a bill for any additional premium that's due based on the actuals versus the estimates. And I would anticipate that we will receive a bill for a difference for the prior year.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions on that? All right, payment of claims, any issues on the payment of claims? All right, thank you, Susan. The next item is other business. The first item on the other business is road trip discussion. I got a couple requests, and we got enough on there to go for 5 or 6 road trips. We need to kind of have everybody look at your points, and let's maybe condense it down a little bit, or we'll be all day on 2 or 3 days on a road trip. So that's,
Judge, I know I had North Scruggs on mine, but it sounds like John, I'm sorry, that's already, that road's being fixed, that's the reason I wanted.
so if you'll get back with Tamara,
Okay.
So we're not gonna do it today?
We're not gonna do it today, no. That was not on the agenda, because we didn't plan to do that, but we're, in the near future, when we do it, we need to kind of make sure that we can get it all in.
Can I get with you in regards to getting a letter written to the state, to Bobby Joe or whoever? 1, 2, 3. 3 of mine are state roads that honestly just have been neglected due to one reason or another. Roadside ditching along Elkhorn Creek, things, they just need attention. I've spoken to Mike Dees, and he said he'd get to it, and they made it out, and they started patching Camp Pleasant Road, and they took 11 ton and ran out and didn't finish the potholes, so.
Aren't they supposed to pave it though?
Yeah, they haven't been back out, but that's part of that roadside. Yeah, but I'm just saying that
Here's
there's
what
some
I'd
state
like for
roads
you
that
to do,
need some
if you would,
attention in the worst
send
ways.
emails to me, and include Tambra. List what you want and what you want from it, and that way it'll be clear. If you could, give me the proper road numbers as opposed to the names.
Not a problem.
And that's what the state would prefer, and I'll take care of that.
Thank you.
Bobby Joe has been really good about it.
Judge, I've got some pictures I need to send you, Tamara, to forward to Matt Bullock too, on the 1-lane bridge.
Okay,
Had a house trailer hung up on it for several hours the other day.
okay, okay.
And the same day, a semi had to back around. And
Is that the one we already sent a letter on that one?
No.
That's this,
No,
that
he
different?
tore a tree up at my yard, and he finally got turned around, but I wasn't home, my sister-in-law was there.
Where was that?
Right there at my house, right in the corner from my house. And then they got a house trailer there, and they had to bring in their track machine to move the trailer around, finally built a cribbing up to get the thing over top of the guardrails. Finally got it across after about 6 hours.
Golly. Okay.
And they were told not to go that way.
Right.
And their permit didn't have it going that way. I don't know if they got cited or not. Deputy was there.
The
but-
semi or the trailer?
The house trailer movers. They were told not to go that way, and they went anyway. And their permit, I know, didn't have them going that way, but they came from all the way from Owensboro. I don't know how they got there, but they did.
All right. Send that.
But
to
they
us.
paid their price.
Okay. Any other business?
Damn.
Another business?
I'm good. I'll take some pictures and send those to Tamara. and
Okay.
I'll get all that stuff. Okay. Thank you.
Squire Sebastian?
Thank you, Judge. I just want to give a quick report on the July cruise-in. $500 was raised, actually, to give to the Franklin County Fire Department's toy drive, and some toys were brought, so that's a good way to help launch that event, doing Christmas in July. The next cruise-in that the county government and all who have, helped support that, Judge, and others, thank you so much. The next one is this Sunday, August 14th, from 1 to 4 at the Carter House. And all the proceeds are going to benefit the Eastern Kentucky flood relief. And any donated items like water, pet supplies, cleaning supplies, things like that, they'll be put on a trailer and taken up there as well. So just appreciate anybody who can come out and support this, because we've had some really good events this summer. We supported the toy drive, we're going to support flood relief, and then the first one, we supported veterans. So it was we've done really good things here, so I appreciate members of Franklin County government who stepped up to help to do this. It's a good thing. You have good things in your heart.
Well, I want to add to that because there are 3 people and maybe the alternate that are going to participate in the Spellapalooza, and there will be a honey pot, they call them, for donations for our team, county government's team. It's called the Zombies, okay?
All right.
Team Zombie.
And that's today.
That's
tonight.
tonight,
Yes.
yeah.
You just want
So,
Who are the members?
well, myself, I don't know how I got
The three members from the fiscal court are
There you go.
Andrew, Brittany, and Marty.
All right.
And Paula said she'll be an alternate, but she doesn't
Oh,
do
okay.
it. And,
Ah, she's an English teacher, she definitely needs to do it.
Yeah,
And,
she's been on it before.
I donated $300
Great.
to do it. It was a donation,
Thank
not
you.
me personally,
Yeah.
to sponsor the team. And there you go.
Yay, there's our
Team Zombie.
thing, yeah. And if the person, if our honey pot gets more money than anyone else, then we get another money. We get a prize. I don't know what it is, I forget.
It's a piece of cake. I don't know what it is, and we don't care. It's just money to the Thornhill Education Center, right,
Yeah,
Marty? That's what
right.
it's all about.
Are there any committee reports?
Marty, there's
We're
first
gonna go
100
back.
to put in the pot.
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you.
There you go. Just like that. We gotta win it.
All right.
Well, thank you, Michael. I mean Squire Miller.
That's fine. Happy.
Constitutional Office Report, Department Reports, Committee Updates.
Yep, great.
Squire Muller, you're.
Well, I had a question for Mr. Hewitt. Is now okay to ask it?
Bless his heart.
Yeah, no, it's not bad. Robert, just curious if you have any updates on the Silver Lake Pump Station relocation.
No new updates. They are still working on design. I have seen some flags out in the field. I would anticipate, let's see, I think they've already done borings out there. So to my understanding, they're just wrapping up designs. I believe they did receive approval for their entrance permit, access road on Georgetown Road. So they've got that in their files. I'm happy to follow up with the sewer department to see how far along now they are in design. I would anticipate they're getting pretty close, and I can get back with you and let you know.
Yeah, if you could just let me know, because I can let the homeowner association know. And then also, just curious where the new road department is in the process.
So I've met with Mr. Pelosi, the design engineer, this week, and also I believe he was down at the road department this week as well. I have reviewed some preliminary renderings of their layout. They hope to have some more detailed architectural renderings within the next 2 weeks. I've asked to meet with John Mitchell to go over these preliminary drawings.
Wow.
And for feedback from his crew on what he sees and what I'll show him. And then I have had a discussion with the City of Frankfort Public Works Department about acquiring the 800 feet of Lewis Ferry Road that the county currently maintains, whereas the city maintains, the county maintains the rest of it. They were agreeable to that, so I have to process that through both the county, fiscal court, and the city. And then with that in hand, we can work on the oversized right-of-way width to hopefully provide some more buildable area for the road department facility.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Robert, see if Mr. Pelosi, Mr. Codell, or could be on for the September 1st meeting.
Yes, sir, I'll do it.
Okay. Okay. Miss Ann, good to see you.
Good to see you. Good morning, Court.
Good
I just wanted to let everyone know about some goals that we're working toward. You might remember that some of the recovery funds that come to the Commonwealth and are dispersed to the different counties based on population, the cleaner water funds, the first round that came through the city, county, and utilities have to agree to. That first round went to that Twilight Trail pump station, if you'll remember, and I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 million. The second round is going to be made available, and the goal we're working toward is asking that that second round be split. Half go to the city to work with the city sewer department and Frankfurt Plant Board, and the other half go to the county for us to make available for our water districts and sanitation district for continued improvements on our existing infrastructure. We'll be reaching out to all those districts, all the utilities, and letting them know that projects that they want to ask for assistance with will have to be in that WRIS portal and approved. So that's the portal that goes through KIA. And we'll be working with them to help make the best use of those cleaner water funds that are coming through the Commonwealth.
What was that acronym again? The port?
It's called the WRIS portal. You can look at it on the WRIS. You can look at it on the Kentucky Infrastructure website. There's a link so that you can search and see what counties are, what projects are out there for Frankfurt and Franklin counties, so you can get an idea of the types of projects. Some of those have to do with, for example, water loss improvement projects and line replacement. There's a lot of work out there still that, of course, that needs to be done, and we thought that would be the most equitable way to try and get that money spread out so that everybody can get some use from it. So I just wanted to let the court know that that's the goal we're working toward. The funds have not become available yet, but we're trying to plan ahead and have our utilities have the opportunity to get in and make sure that their projects are updated and approved so that they'll be ready.
Right.
Okay, another way to help.
Thank you.
Stick in your all's area. Okay, thank you, Miss Annie. Appreciate you being on top of all of that.
Thank you.
Okay, there's another item that I need to bring up. I know it, but I need to bring it up if we're going to be doing it. Is that okay? It's been requested by our attorney that we go into closed session at, after a voting meeting to discuss litigation, potential litigation just on behalf of the public agency. This is new to me too, but so.
Okay, we're just going to amend the agenda, so we'll need a motion for that, and then we're going to go into closed session to discuss litigation.
Litigation, okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure what it was. Okay.
Thank you, Court. Thank you, Judge.
Anything else? All right. Since we've had a restroom break, if that's okay, we'll just move it from this this piece to the voting session. So let's restart, everybody. Thank you for listening to the work session, and now we thank you for being here for the voting session. This is the Franklin County Fiscal Court video teleconferencing regular meeting for August 12th, 2022, and this is our voting session. Clerk, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Here.
Squire Blackburn.
Present.
Squire Muller.
Present.
Squire Tracy.
Here.
Squire Booth.
Present.
Squire Moore.
Here.
Judge Wells.
Here. The next item on the agenda is authorization for approval of minutes from our regular meeting of July 22nd, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. The next item on the agenda is authorization to receive report of the audit of our current share of settlement 2022 taxes for period May 16th, 2020 through April 15th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All right, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes, the next item is authorization to receive the Farmdale Sanitation District's year 2022-2023 budget.
I move that we approve that budget.
We
No,
don't
it's to
approve
receive
we're
it,
just
we don't approve
accepting it.
anything.
Okay,
Just receive it.
thank you.
Second.
Squire Sebastian.
Second.
Okay, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. The next item is the second reading and approval of an ordinance amending operation of county fiscal court, chapter 30, administrative code, personnel administration, section .055, methods of filing vacancies, or filling vacancies, section .099, compensation plan, section .100, classification of employees, and add a section for county-issued property to employees of the Franklin County Code of Ordinances.
So moved.
Second.
It's a long one.
All right, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. The next item is the second reading, approval of an ordinance amending the table of special ordinances, section 1, zoning map changes of the Franklin County Code of Ordinances for a 49.96 acre property identified as PDA map number 082-00-00-016.04, located at 3730 Peaks Mill Road from rural residential district RR to agricultural district AG.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Wait a minute. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Items number 7, number 8, and number 9 have been removed, and so we will be dealing with those at a different time.
August 22nd.
We will be dealing with item number 7 and number 8 on August the 22nd at 5 o'clock. There's a special called meeting.
Yes.
Okay. The next item is item 10, and that's authorization to hire Daniel Walker as a full-time staff planner in the Planning and Zoning Department.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. And welcome back, Daniel. Okay, the next item is authorization to approve a resolution for a commitment of the Franklin County Fiscal Court to share in the cost of removal of an abandoned houseboat hull located in the Kentucky River with the city of Frankfort not to exceed $6,000, with half of the cost to be split with the city.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
I'm just gonna say, months and months ago, I reached out to a number of organizations about this situation. Kentucky River Authority, our emergency management, transportation cabinet, members of the legislature. And this travesty is, the travesty in all of this is no organization has an enforcement for abandoned boats. And certainly, I want to see that changed. I think a number of others want to see that changed. I've spoken to Representative Graham on several occasions about this, and, there's no authority right now. We have situations like this, and for safety, this needs to be resolved, and I think that's what we all want to do around this table. We are a river community. We love the river, embrace the river, and it's a safety issue.
Agree.
So I vote yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Sure are gonna miss that boat. Yes.
Squire Tracy.
I will not.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes, and we, in my 8 years, this is about the 4th time we've had to deal with this, so it's not just here recently. It has been a long-standing issue, and there are complications, and I understand complications, but I just don't understand why it takes so long, and why we're not being able to get some resolution on this. But as part of that, I appreciate the offer of the city and the county working together to try to make sure that we remove at least this one piece of unsightly issue that's on our beautiful river. So that being said, yes, let's move to the next item, the That item number 12, and that's authorization to approve a resolution approving projects recommended by District 5 maintenance staff of the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet for the 2022-2023 Rural Secondary Road Program.
So moved.
Second.
All right, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Well, I want to say that no roads are in the 5th district are included, but I will vote yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
I didn't hear any Squire Tracy or Squire Moore volunteer to give up.
Kind of quiet down there.
They were.
Yeah, we've got all the roads.
Marty, all your roads got paved the first 2 years.
I know. But I'm still
Now,
upset.
Squire Booth, don't say that. Talking about their road, be careful there.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Somebody else
I
can be
vote-
upset
I-
next year.
I vote yes. The next item is authorization to approve a resolution adopting and approving the execution of a rural secondary program agreement between the Fiscal Court of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Transportation Cabinet, Department of Rural and Municipal Aid, and accepting all roads and streets referred to therein as part of the county road system.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes, the next item is authorization to advertise for sealed bids for a wood chipper for the compost facility.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes, and I want to say what a good program this is that we offer our residents on Thursdays and Fridays.
Yes.
That our road department goes around and picks up branches, and this is what that's used for. And I can't tell you the number of people that have commented about their using of that and how appreciative they are of that program. We also provide on Wednesdays during the summer months
Yard waste.
Wednesdays where people can bring stuff down as well. So our county is way ahead of the game on that, and we're very proactive in trying to do what we can to provide services to our residents. So thank you, Fiscal Court, and thank you, Brittany, for finding ways to come up with this expensive piece of machinery that helps with this. The next item, I did vote yes, I think. Hopefully I did. The next item is authorization to approve an employee contract for repayment purposes of expenses incurred by the county for employees required to attend an entry-level driver training program for eligibility to acquire a Class A or a Class B commercial driver's license as part of their job duty.
So moved.
Second.
Okay? Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
I'm going to vote yes for this, and I just want to make sure, I think in all the documents I saw, it mentioned Class A. Will it also include Class B when it goes into the administrative code? Did I miss
It
that?
says Class A or Class B.
I see it says it here, I just think the document that we read seemed to say Class A. I just want to make sure it's consistent, that's all.
Well, and
It will
you'll,
be.
you'll have an opportunity to vote on that, and I'll make sure before it comes before you that
Got
it
it.
does state
Thank
that.
you. Appreciate that, thank you.
Okay?
All right, so
Yes.
yes, Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
This is caused by a federal regulation that's gonna be detrimental to the trucking industry. I vote yes.
Judge Wells.
Before, obviously I vote yes, but do you know why this was implemented? Is there something, there's got to be some reason that they would make this kind of change?
It's all about the money.
I don't know, but it's gonna deter a lot of truck drivers going into that profession.
Sure will.
We have supply problems now.
We already got a shortage of
Yeah,
drivers,
I'm saying,
it's just
if we
gonna
have
make
an
it worse.
abundance of them. All right, I vote yes. The next item is authorization to approve entering into a lease agreement with Downtown Frankfurt Incorporated for professional office space located at 315 West Main Street. And Tammy, you'll add that with
Yes.
annual review as part of it, okay? Call the roll.
So moved.
So there you go. So moved.
Second.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to hire Sonia White as a part-time seasonal park and golf employee.
Does this go in with the change in our administrative code?
So this one does not apply just yet because the change in the administrative code hasn't passed yet because it has to be published before it's official. So that's why you're doing the authorization to hire her this time. Going forward, we'll come up with some type of language just to ratify the hire that Betty Jo and Charlie Lewis agreed to.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian?
Yes.
Squire Blackburn?
Yes.
Squire Muller?
Yes.
Squire Tracy?
Yes.
Squire Booth?
Yes.
Squire Moore?
Yes.
Judge Wells?
Yes, next item is authorization to receive the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian?
Yes.
Squire Blackburn?
Yes.
Squire Muller?
Yes.
Squire Tracy?
Yes.
Squire Booth?
Yes.
Squire Moore?
Yes.
Judge Wells?
Yes. Next item is payment of claims. Is there any motion to deny any payment of any claims?
No.
All right, seeing none, let the record reflect claims are ordered to be paid. The next item is authorization to amend the agenda to add a closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian?
Yes.
Squire Blackburn?
Yes.
Squire Muller?
Yes.
Squire Tracy?
Yes.
Squire Booth?
Yes.
Squire Moore?
Yes.
Judge Wells?
Yes, next item is authorization to go into closed session to update fiscal court on litigation per KRS 61.810 subsection 1, subsection C, discussions of proposed or pending litigation against or on behalf of the public agency.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian?
Yes.
Squire Blackburn?
Yes.
Squire Muller?
Yes.
Squire Tracy?
Yes.
Squire Booth?
Yes.
Squire Moore?
Yes.
Judge Wells?
Yes. Okay, Andrew, if you would, only
let them back in.
All right.
I think as long as State Ten's ready, we're good.
Okay, all right. We're back into open session, and the last item on the agenda is authorization to adjourn.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Okay, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. God bless. Stay safe, and keep Eastern Kentucky people in your thoughts and prayers.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Judge.
Thank you.